Chapter 1338. A battle about the soul and the body eventually came to an end with the directional amnesia of all the cultivators on Earth. After confirming that Lotus Sun had returned to her body and could move normally again, Old Man Sun from Huagua Water Curtain Group was thrilled. All the hospital staff and the group's employees cheered. In front of Battle Sect, Old Man Sun arranged for someone to bring Lotus Sun back and shook hands with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sincerely. "Thank you, Senior Immortal, for your help." But the old man was still a little worried and wanted her to go back to the hospital for a more detailed examination. "It's just a piece of cake. Everyone worked together." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled. "Don't worry, Senior Immortal. My Huagua Water Curtain Group will cover all of Battle Sect's losses, including the damaged buildings." The old man smiled very happily. "Ah, you're welcome." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled even more happily. Although Old Man Sun didn't remember exactly what had happened, he had heard that an evil person had wreaked havoc in Battle Sect in order to steal his granddaughter's body. With the help of all the members of Battle Sect, his granddaughter's body had recovered, and even the evil person had been killed on the spot. Now that the evil person had been killed, Sunny Yuan naturally didn't care anymore. For Old Man Sunday, nothing was more important than his granddaughter's health. Half an hour later in the True Venerate Hall, faced with her crimes of destroying Earth on purpose and disrupting the unity of the cultivators, Sun Yinger confessed without any reservation. Sun Yinger was in fact the evil person who had already been killed according to the rumors. "I was wrong, I was really wrong. I shouldn't have come to Earth in the first place. If I hadn't..." The white-haired girl knelt devoutly in the True Venerate Hall and sincerely repented. Wang Ying stood next to her, arms crossed as she stared at her. At that moment, some time had passed since the planetary wall-thumping spell. But Sun Yinger still had lingering fears. She lowered her eyes and stared at the claw marks on her wrists out of the corner of her eye. They had been left behind when Wang Ying had pinched her. Furthermore, it was as if she had deliberately left her mark as a declaration of sovereignty. "I know what you're thinking." Wang Ying stared at Sun Yinger. "You're the master of the void. It's not difficult for you to regrow your hand." "How did you know?" Sun Yinger was shocked, because she did have the thought of chopping off her hand. She was the new master of the void, yet someone had left a mark on her. How was she going to rule the void and establish herself in the void world if word of this got out? "In front of me, any little schemes are useless." Wang Ying smiled. "I can tell you very clearly that the mark on your wrist will not disappear. This is a kind of brand that seems to be engraved in the soul. No matter where the person who is engraved by me escapes, I will be able to find him in an instant." "You are too much." Sun Yinger raised her head and tears welled up in her eyes again. "If it weren't for the fact that you're Miss Sun's shadow, you'd already be dead." Wang Ying shrugged. "You only have one choice now, and that is to stay on Earth obediently and accept my supervision. After all, you are indeed a dangerous person." Lotus Sun's plan to return to the void had come to an end. The main reason was that Sun Yinger was currently on Earth. As long as the master of the void was constantly monitored, she naturally wouldn't be in danger. As for who to monitor Sun Yinger, Wang Ling felt that there was really no one more suitable than Wang Ying. He would leave the matter of the shadow to it. There was nothing wrong with it. "I object." In the Great Hall of True Venerate, Sun Yinger had already admitted her mistake. But she was still extremely dissatisfied with the fact that she would be monitored on Earth. How was this supervision? This was simply imprisonment. Objection overruled. At that moment, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal also stood up and looked at the rest of the people in the Great Hall of True Venerate. "Everyone, let's vote. Those who agree with Miss Sun Yinger's plan to monitor Earth, please raise your hands." Ajua Fangxing Monk Golden Lamp, Immortal Jinyuan Miss Awan, a brand new Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, Death Heavenly Dao wrapped in bandages. Almost all the core members were in the hall. As soon as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said this, everyone raised their hands in unison. The minority obeys the majority. The proposal passes. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded in satisfaction. Just like that, the matter was settled. "All of you, just you wait. When I return to the void, the first thing I'll do is wipe out Battle Sect." Sun Yinger rose from her kneeling position in anger and humiliation. "Jim?" At that moment, Wang Ying raised her eyebrows. The girl was going to continue to curse furiously and say something even more outrageous. In the end, Wang Ying forced her back with a look and she knelt back down. I accept." Sun Yinger wanted to cry but had no tears. Under Wang Ying's coercion, she could only agree to the conditions. "Very good. At that point, Wang Ying nodded in satisfaction. While you're under my supervision on Earth, please do the following things. You first. Sun Yinger was like a bullied little wife. She really didn't have the slightest bit of temper when it came to Wang Ying. First, after you return to Miss Sun's body, you're not allowed to cause any trouble. During the day you'll obediently be Miss Sun's shadow. And at night? Come to me at night to write a self-reflection and I'll check your homework. While you're on Earth, you'll have to write a self-reflection of no less than 800 words every day. You can write it on the same day. But you're not allowed to fill it with water. You need to express your true feelings. Second, Miss Sun hasn't returned to the void, so her true strength is still at the foundation establishment stage. As a shadow, you still have to protect Miss Sun at all times and treat her like your real mother. Duh, a real mother? Not a real mother, but better than a real mother. Wang Ying said resolutely and decisively, just like my Commander Lord. Although I've always called him Commander Lord, I know he's my real father. Sun Yinger realized that Wang Ying was really shameless. Given her temper, she would have retorted under normal circumstances. But now she didn't dare. Third, there's the problem of Miss Sun's memory. After her soul returned to her body, she experienced an extremely rare delayed amnesia. I reckon that it's about time. Miss Sun will soon forget everything that happened when she was in her soul state, Wang Ying said. But I know that she has records. Sun Yinger said. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Wang Ying looked at Sun Yinger and said, there are records on Miss Sun's cloud disk. To prevent any accidents, your mission when you go back is to erase all these records. I understand. Sun Yinger lowered her head and agreed. Very good. Wang Ying nodded. I'll tell you about the remaining few thousand records when I think of them. You can return to classmate Sun's body and continue to be a shadow. With that, Wang Ying waved her hand and watched as Sun Yinger left as if she was fleeing. On the way back to Lotus Sun's body, Sun Yinger's hatred for Wang Ying grew even stronger. Bam. She actually wanted to instruct her to erase the memories in those cloud disks? Don't even think about it. She wouldn't delete them. As she flew, Sun Yinger suddenly turned around and stuck out her tongue in the direction of Battle Sect. Even if I can't beat you, I'll piss you off to death. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Chapter 1339. After Sun Yinger went back, 2 small meetings were held at the same time. In the inner office of the True Sovereign Hall. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal called him into his office alone. They discussed the aftermath of the incident. Has Brother Zhuo made arrangements for Jiang Xiaoche and Yi Jiang? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. Don't worry, Senior Immortal. Their real bodies and dummies have already been swapped back, so there's nothing wrong, Audiobook replied. But Audiobook had a feeling. He felt that this might not be the real reason why Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was looking for him. As expected, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal swiftly took out a gift box. It seemed to have been prepared a long time ago and had been placed in a drawer in his office. Mr. Sun has already promised to compensate all of our battle sex losses, as well as to assist in the construction of the highest realms pill laboratory and spirit beast domestication base. Although young Miss Sun is fine as the leader of a sect, I have to express my sincerity. She's been frightened recently, said Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. What do you mean? This is just a small token of my appreciation. I'll have to trouble Brother Zhuo to help me deliver it. Aren't you going to see Miss Sun? How would Senior Immortal know? Audiobook smiled. It's not the first time I've known you, Brother Zhuo. In the office, after the 2 men looked at each other, they laughed tacitly. The second meeting place was the Heavenly Tao Governing Committee. After drawing countless death substitute talismans, the Heavenly Tao of Survival returned to the Heavenly Court with its injured brother, the Heavenly Tao of Death. The Golden Men of the Heavenly Path led by the other 5 main positions of the Heavenly Path welcomed them. For a moment, the Heavenly Court was bustling with noise and excitement. Thank you for your hard work in the lower realm, Strength Heavenly Tao said with tears in his eyes. I've finally completed Ling Jinren's task. Death Heavenly Tao's expression was a little complicated. I heard that you took the initiative to refuse Ling Jinren's treatment? Yeah. Death Heavenly Tao nodded. I don't dare trouble Ling Jinren to treat me. Miss Lotus Sun was dragged out of my inner world by Sun Yinger, and it was my fault for not protecting her properly. I'm already very grateful that Ling Jinren didn't punish me for failing to protect me. How could I dare trouble him to treat me again? I understand. The other main seats of Heavenly Tao nodded. As the saying went, there was no reward without pains. This was a situation like the Heavenly Tao of Death. The Heavenly Tao's law of equivalent exchange was very strict. Death Heavenly Tao would probably have to pay a certain price for asking Wang Ling to treat him when he couldn't protect him, so it was better not to treat him. As for the hard work, that required physical strength, it was not a condition of equivalent exchange. Manual labor was the least valuable. However, for Death Heavenly Tao, this trip to the lower realm wasn't without rewards. His intervention could also be considered a success, which meant that the Heavenly Court had further deepened its relationship with Wang Ling. The future path of the Heavenly Court had undoubtedly become narrower. Brother Death, there is actually one more thing that I need to trouble you with. At that moment, Strength Heavenly Law suddenly spoke. What is it? Death Heavenly Tao had a bad feeling when he saw how polite the other envoys of the main Heavenly Tao were. It's not a big deal. It's just a small token of our appreciation. Strength Heavenly Tao said, we've thought about it carefully. If it hadn't been for what happened to Miss Sun this time, our Heavenly Court might have had to wait for hundreds or even thousands of years before we found a great opportunity to deepen the distance between us and Ling Jinren. This is truly a heaven-sent opportunity. So, we've prepared some gifts to express our appreciation. We hope that Brother Death can deliver them to Miss Sun on our behalf. Gifts? Death Heavenly Tao was startled. The Heavenly Court had personally prepared gifts for a girl from the lower realm? This was indeed rare. Miss Sun has suffered a lot in this incident. Consider this a small token of our appreciation for her. Strength Heavenly Tao pushed the prepared gift box into Death Heavenly Tao's hand. It's not difficult for you to give her a gift, but in whose name? You can't possibly give it in the name of our Heavenly Tao, right? Death Heavenly Tao nodded, then said, Miss Sun is about to lose her memory and may not remember us. Brother Death, don't worry too much. Just give it in the name of a battle sect disciple. Battle sect disciple? Death Heavenly Tao laughed again. When did our Heavenly Tao become a member of battle sect? F***K, isn't it good to become a member of battle sect? Brother Death, you're clearly already a core member of battle sect. Strength Heavenly Tao said excitedly, Ling Jinren's 5% directional global amnesia spell didn't include you. The fact that you haven't lost your memory means that Ling Jinren has completely approved of you. This is a clear indication. I understand. Death Heavenly Tao nodded. From now on, Brother Death, you can represent our Heavenly Court and have more contact with Ling Jinren. This is also the result of our meeting just now. But during this meeting, my brother and I, the survival Heavenly Tao, aren't here. According to the principle of majority rule, whether you two brothers were present or not, the result would be the same. Since you want to have contact with Ling Jinren, you have to establish your identity on Earth. What do you mean? Death Heavenly Tao asked. Number 60 high. Let's go study together. I'm a Heavenly Tao, why do I need to study? Death Heavenly Tao retorted sternly. The monk is so strong and he's now studying functions. Why shouldn't the Heavenly Tao study? Strength Heavenly Tao retorted sternly. It was reasonable and convincing. Death Heavenly Tao was rooted to the spot on the spot. Elsewhere, Songhai First Military Medical Hospital. Lotus Sun underwent a comprehensive physical examination again. The results were very good, and the doctor congratulated Old Man Sunday. Congratulations, Mr. Sun. Miss Sun is perfectly fine. And I feel that her body seems to be even better than last year's physical examination data. I understand, thank you for your hard work, doctor. Old Man Sun cupped his fists respectfully in salute to the doctor. Then I won't disturb you any further, Mr. Sunday. There are other patients waiting for me. With a smile on his face, the doctor quickly gave the grandfather and grandson some space. Giving a doctor a red packet was an insult to doctors. It was a doctor's duty to save the dying and help the injured. So many doctors had been mobilized for Lotus Sun's matter this time, and Old Man Sun felt a little apologetic. Thus, Sunny Yuan made a shocking decision. He decided to thank all the hospitals that had lent a helping hand this time. Whether they were in or out of the city, as long as they had sent doctors, each hospital would receive at least 2 buildings from Huagua Water Curtain Group as well as supporting medical facilities. Grandpa. At that moment, Lotus Sun looked at Sunny Yuan, who was smiling from the bed. Don't worry, Rong Rong. To be on the safe side, I'll observe her for one more night. You can go home tomorrow. Old Man Sun held the girl's hand tightly and felt her vibrant pulse. There was no doubt that Lotus Sun had completely recovered. But for some reason, he felt that his precious granddaughter didn't seem very happy. Rong Rong seems to have something on her mind? I don't know either. Lotus Sun lowered her head. I feel like I'm forgetting something. You've suffered so much this time. You must be frightened. The doctor said that this is intermittent amnesia. Once you relax, you'll be fine. Old Man Sun smiled. He then took out his storage bag and placed several gift boxes in front of the girl. What are these? Lotus Sun asked. Battle Sect put in a lot of effort to save you this time. Look, so many people care about you. These are all gifts from them. Grandpa picked out a few of the most important ones and the rest are at home. You can slowly open them when you get home, Sunny Yuan said. These 3 gift boxes had in fact come from Audiobook, grenade-throwing senior immortal and Heavenly Tao who had pretended to be a disciple of Battle Sect. What's in the box? The girl's curiosity was piqued. She opened the 3 gift boxes one by one. Then, grandfather and grandson stared at the items in the gift boxes in silence for a long time. They understood this principle. But why were they all a USB drive? In the small theater, Audiobook. By the way, what did Senior Immortal give to junior sister Lotus Sun? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. This is a priceless treasure. It's a small thing but it contains a huge amount of energy. Audiobook scared and smiled bitterly. It's so good to be rich, unlike me. I'm so poor that I can only give a USB drive. The corners of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mouth twitched. Brother Zhua, did you also give a USB drive? Zhua, what do you mean, also? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal dropped his forehead into his hand. I reckon that Miss Lotus Sun's house can now open a USB drive store. Zhua, that can't be, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Do you think it's just the 2 of us? Zhua. Chapter 1340. Maybe it was some kind of secret technique? This was Old Man Sun's first reaction when he saw the USB drive. After all, it was a gift from grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, the head of Battle Sect. He couldn't be that stingy. Sunny Yuan quickly ordered someone to bring a laptop to Lotus Sunday. Rong, take a look. Maybe there's something important inside. Grandpa, please excuse us for a moment. Old Man Sun stood up with a smile on his face. Everyone had their own privacy which needed to be respected. The old man was a sensible man. On the other hand, he was well aware of the kind of people in Battle Sect. What was stored in the USB drive definitely wasn't some random thing. He only needed to know this and that was enough. Grandpa, you don't want to see it? The girl wanted to share it. This is something your friend left for you. Grandpa doesn't think it's appropriate. Old Man Sun shook his head. If you need anything, just press the call button next to the bed. Grandpa will be with you next door. He had turned down all his work in the group and planned to spend time with his precious granddaughter in peace for a while. Thank you, Grandpa. Lotus Sun's eyes curved. Then, full of curiosity, she plugged the USB drive into her laptop and plugged in her headphones. The first thing she looked at was the USB drive that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had given her. It was a video that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had recorded himself. It was a video that he had recorded in his office. In the video, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was still wearing his familiar white slim-fitting Taoist robe. His long black hair hung down naturally and he stood ramrod straight. Miss Sun, when you see this video you may wonder why I, the head of Battle Sect, would record such a video for you. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said slowly, the first thing I want to tell you is that you've already lost a part of your memory. The entire video was about 15 minutes long. After the girl finished watching it carefully, although her memory hadn't completely recovered, she seemed to have a general understanding of the whole story. Furthermore, she heard a familiar name in grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's introduction. Wang Ling, classmate Wang Ling is actually so amazing. The girl's expression was the same as the astonishment she had felt when she first heard it. She hadn't expected it either. Everything had actually happened because of her. And Wang Ling had done so many things for her in silence. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had narrated the entire incident from his own point of view, so there were naturally some omissions, but the advantage of it was that it was logical and organized. As the leader of the Battle Sect, there was no need for him to fabricate such a story and give it to him as a gift. Of course, if this was just grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's opinion, the girl might still have her doubts. But now she had 3 USB drives in her hands. The second USB drive was sent by the Heavenly Tao disguised as the disciples of the Battle Sect. In the video, Strength Heavenly Tao was sitting in front of the Heavenly Tao Governing Committee's desk with a serious expression. Hello, Miss Sunday. I'm Strength Heavenly Tao. When you see this video you might have already lost a part of your memory. The video left behind by Tiandao made the girl feel even more horrified. The heavenly law of the lower realm, she had never heard of such a thing. And most importantly, this actually had something to do with Wang Ling, so the Heavenly Tao was opened by classmate Wang Ling. Lotus Sun felt that there was a lot of information to take in. But after watching the second video left behind by the Heavenly Tao, she had a clearer understanding of the entire incident. The Heavenly Tao narrated from a different angle, and added a lot of details to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's narrative. Because all the Heavenly Tao's memories were shared, when Death Heavenly Tao had been by the girl's side, Death Heavenly Tao's memories had also flowed into the minds of the other Heavenly Tao. So Strength Heavenly Tao's narrative was in fact everything that Death Heavenly Tao had seen when it had been with the girl. Now there was only one USB drive left. It had been sent by Senior Audiobook. She wondered what details he would add to her story. Filled with curiosity, Lotus Sun replaced the USB drive. Inside it was another video. Audiobook had recorded it for her while standing. But after pressing the play button, Lotus Sun felt as if she had been hit hard. Hello, Mistress. When you see this video, you might have already lost a part of your memory. From Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Heavenly Tao's narration, she already knew that Audiobook's Shifu was in fact Wang Ling. Then didn't Mistress mean? The girl's face instantly turned red. Lotus Sun felt a little stupefied. Unable to continue listening, she closed the laptop with a bang. It wasn't for any other reason. It was because Audiobook's narration had been a little wretched, and he had chuckled the whole time, which was completely different from the serious Senior Audiobook she usually knew. Senior Audiobook actually had this side to him. The girl found it inconceivable. When she came back to her senses, Lotus Sun realized that the laptop screen had actually cracked because she had turned it off too hard. The noise directly alarmed Old Man Sun, who was next door. He instinctively thought that his granddaughter had fallen out of bed, and hurried over to check on her. Rong, are you okay? Old Man Sun opened the door and came in, his face full of worry. It wasn't until he saw that Lotus Sun was sitting on the bed, safe and sound, that he breathed a sigh of relief. I'm fine, Grandpa. I just turned off the computer too hard just now, said the girl. It's fine, it's just a computer. I'll just switch to another one. Old Man Sun looked at Lotus Sun and somehow felt that something wasn't right. Rong, why's your face so red? Red. Lotus Sun was instantly nervous. Recalling how Audiobook had called her master's wife just now, she couldn't stop her heart from beating faster. The heart rate monitor on the side showed that Lotus Sun's heart rate and blood pressure were rising rapidly. The entire machine was even sounding an alarm. Old Man Sun was instantly very anxious. At the same time, he was very puzzled. Everything had been fine just now, why had the data suddenly become abnormal? 5 or 6 minutes later, after the doctor on duty had examined Lotus Sun, he invited Sunny Yuan out of the ward. Old Man Sun was nervous, but he still put on a prepared expression. Doctor, tell me what's wrong with my granddaughter. I'm already prepared. No, don't worry, Mr. Sunday. As I said before, Miss Sun is very healthy, there's nothing wrong with her. The doctor shook his head. But her heart rate is unusually fast. Excuse me, does Miss Sun like anyone? The doctor asked bluntly. There have always been many people pursuing Rong, but I've never seen her truly fall for anyone. The old man shook his head. Is that so? The doctor smiled meaningfully. Old Man Sun wasn't stupid. There was no way he wouldn't have guessed what the doctor was hinting at. Doctor, you mean, Miss Sun, she's in love? In love? Old Man Sun was surprised. Which family is this kid from? How much does he like her? The faster her heart beats, the more she likes her. The doctor's words were concise. But as for who she likes, Mr. Sun, you'll have to ask yourself. I understand, thank you, doctor. Old Man Sun nodded. That night was destined to be a sleepless one for Old Man Sunday. He had never thought that his precious granddaughter would actually be so moved by someone. Of course, this someone, Old Man Sun had guessed it based on his intuition. Considering the girl's feelings, he didn't directly ask her who on earth she liked. But to Old Man Sun, the answer was already very obvious. He had spent so much effort to save his granddaughter and had even sent her a gift. Inside that USB drive was probably some kind of confession video or something. It made sense. Everything made sense. In the middle of the night, Old Man Sun paced back and forth in front of the bed in the room next to Lotus Sun's as he racked his brains for words. It was around 2 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, December 2nd. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal received a message from Old Man Sunday Sunny Yuan. Senior Immortal, I'm really sorry to disturb you so late at night. I'm very grateful for Battlesec's help to my Sun family, but my granddaughter is only 16, so I will never agree to this marriage between Senior Immortal and Rong. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal? Chapter 1341. When Old Man Sun realized that the person Lotus Sun liked was Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, for the first time he had the urge to smash his head against a block of tofu. Although it was said that love could transcend age, However, the span was too big and it was easy to sprain his waist. 16 years old was like a flower. How could Rong Rong have taken a fancy to this battle sect master? He felt that young people were too impulsive. At this time, it was necessary for the old man in the family to come out and act as a cooling agent to calm down the head in love. Of course, there was another very important reason why the old man was vehemently opposed to this marriage, and that was because someone had asked him to be grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's matchmaker. What should he do now? Old man's son didn't know what to do. The Battle Sect and Huagua Water Curtain Group were currently partners. Even if he couldn't become her grandson-in-law, he would still be her friend. At the very least, he had to pay more attention to his wording. He could no longer throw the money in the other person's face like he usually did, and then ask, "How much money do you want for you to leave my baby granddaughter?" Sunny Yuan felt that he couldn't imagine grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's image, and that it was out of place. The most important thing was, this matter was of great importance. It even concerned his precious granddaughter's reputation. He could not let anyone else know about this. He had no choice but to come forward and negotiate in private. While he was frowning, old man's son's phone rang. It was a call from grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. When grenade-throwing Senior Immortal received old man's son's message, for the first time, he had the urge to smash his head against the broccoli. Wasn't the USB for Miss Sun to complete her memory? Why did it suddenly turn into an objection to his marriage with Miss Sun? For a moment, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal shivered. I almost couldn't even hold my phone. Not to mention that old man's son was against this marriage. Even if they carried 80 palanquins to invite him to be the son-in-law of the Sun family. He didn't have the guts. So here's the problem. How did this misunderstanding come about? After old man's son's greeting, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't sleep anymore. He felt that before things got out of hand, he had to explain himself as soon as possible. After dialing old man's son's cell phone, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had an aggrieved expression on his face. As soon as the call was picked up, old man's son immediately said, "Perfected monarch. You finally called. Don't worry. You can slowly state your conditions. We can discuss it as long as you don't get together with Rong Rong." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I actually don't want to be with Miss Sun. Could it be that you still want to have sex with me?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took a deep breath. "Mr. Sun, calm down. I think there might be a misunderstanding." "What misunderstanding?" "After my granddaughter received your war sex USB, her heartbeat accelerated. The doctor said that Rong Rong is in love, so I think there must be some kind of confession video." "Mr. Sun didn't watch the video?" "I didn't. This is Rong Rong's privacy." "But Miss Sun didn't just receive my flash drive?" "Mr. Sun, what makes you think that she likes me?" Hearing this, Sunny Yuan was stunned. Very quickly, old man's son was startled. "Could it be? The one Rong Rong likes is Audiobook. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal?" Well, this was completely missing the point. Compared with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, actually, old man's son found Audiobook even more unacceptable. The main reason was that he didn't like his hairstyle very much. Every time old man's son saw Audiobook's curly hair, he had the urge to cut it off with a pair of scissors. Helpless, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal could only remind him further. "Old man's son, do you remember that not long ago, Miss Sun actually confessed to you?" Old man's son was baffled. "Rong Rong confessed to you? When did that happen?" As soon as he said this, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sensed that something wasn't right. Back then, Lotus Sun's confession had caused a sensation on the internet. Although it had been quickly suppressed afterward, it was reasonable to say that given old man's son's memory, it was impossible for him to completely forget it. Could it be that Brother Death Heavenly Dao's physical amnesia had been too strong, and the effect of the 5% targeted global amnesia spell had directly caused old man's son to develop intermittent sequelae, which caused the amnesia to intensify, causing him to forget things that he shouldn't have forgotten? After thinking it over, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that this was the most reasonable explanation. If Brother Ling didn't exist in old man's son's current memories, if grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's son had given the USB flash drive now, it would indeed arouse suspicion. Since Sunny Yuan already didn't remember Lotus Sun's confession, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that if he brought it up again, he might complicate the whole matter even more. He took a deep breath and explained in full detail, "Mr. Sun, you misunderstand. I'm 100% sure that the person Miss Sun likes isn't me, nor is it anyone who gave me the present this time. The person Miss Sun likes is in number 60 high." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that this was as far as he could go. The best outcome for the rest of the matter was to wait for Old Man Sun to calm down and recall it. Then I'm really sorry, Senior Immortal, for bothering you so late at night. This time it was Old Man Sun who felt a little embarrassed. He believed what grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said. He was the Grand Sect leader of Battle Sect. In the face of such a personal matter, he wouldn't lie to him. After hanging up the phone, Old Man Sun rubbed his chin as he sank into deep thought. It turned out that Rongrong had confessed to someone before? This was a big deal. It was impossible for him not to remember. Sun Yun was calling Jiang Xiaoche to ask about the situation. At that moment he suddenly heard a sweet female voice in his ear. His name is Wang Ling, who is it? Sun Yun stood up in alarm. But the room was empty and no one was there. Old Man Sun didn't notice. It was in his blind spot. A figure swiftly slipped out of the crack. At that moment Sun Yinger looked a little excited. It turned out that getting revenge on Wang Ying was such a delightful thing. She had wanted her to delete the information in the cloud disk because she didn't want Lotus Sun to know about Wang Ling. But she had done the exact opposite. After reminding Old Man Sun, Sun Yinger quickly went to Lotus Sun's room. She didn't show her figure but directly used the form of a shadow to whisper in the girl's ear, "Cloud, disk, little, Ben. But as soon as she finished speaking, an even more domineering shadow quietly appeared behind her. Chem? Sun Yinger stood on end at the familiar voice. I didn't do it on purpose, really? She tried to muddle through. And then there was no then. Sun Yinger's shadow was dragged out by Wang Ying. Chapter 1342. The moment Wang Ying dragged her out, Sun Yinger had already realized that things weren't looking good. In front of this man who was like a tyrant, she couldn't use any of her abilities at all. She was like a fish on the chopping board. No, perhaps she was even more pitiful than a fish. At least a fish could still struggle, but it seemed like she didn't even have the right to struggle. I knew you wouldn't behave. Wang Ying took Sun Yinger's hand and dragged her swiftly through the Earth's atmosphere to the moon. Moon Spirit's heart trembled. After Wang Ling had repaired him to 70 to 80% last time, Wang Ling had hurried off to do other things. Moon Spirit could only heal the rest of the damage on his own. Seeing Wang Ying bring Sun Yinger to the moon, Moon Spirit suddenly felt a wave of despair. He was afraid that Wang Ying was going to use his infamous planet-battering spell again. All the planet spirits to the west of the Milky Way wailed at Wang Ying's tyrannical move. However, they had no way of complaining at all, nor could they do so. After landing on the moon, Wang Ying felt the ground under his feet tremble slightly, and immediately knew what Moon Spirit was thinking. He smiled. Moon Spirit, don't worry. I'm just borrowing a place today, I won't hurt you. Hearing this, Moon Spirit heaved a sigh of relief. Can you not be so rough every time? Sun Yinger looked as if she had been stabbed by Wang Ying. In fact, Wang Ying's strength couldn't really hurt Sun Yinger at all. In any case, she was the Lord of the Void. How could her body be so fragile? I've told you to be more honest. You didn't listen, so I had to treat you this way. Wang Ying scratched Sun Yinger's claw marks with his thumb. If you don't learn from your mistakes, you'll suffer in the end. Have you forgotten the mark I left on your body? As long as I want to, I can track you anytime and anywhere. Don't be so sure. Anyway, it's all over now. Rongrong already knows everything. So what if he knows? Wang Ying shrugged indifferently. In any case, Lord Ling is just a block of wood. He can't develop feelings for anyone else. Sun Yinger found this inconceivable. You already know, but very quickly Sun Yinger understood. Wang Ying did it on purpose. He had already predicted that she would not follow his orders. That was why he had set this trap, waiting for her to fall into it. He was waiting for her to make a mistake so that he could punish her. So perverted. Thinking of this, Sun Yinger could not help but shiver, and goosebumps appeared all over her body. You finally realized? At this moment, Wang Ying suddenly took a step forward and pressed Sun Yinger onto the ground of the moon. He grabbed the girl's wrist and raised it above her head. Their fingers interlocked as he held her down. The familiar posture of leaning against the wall made Sun Yinger's heart beat faster. The girl blushed and turned her face to the side. You promised that you wouldn't do anything against the wall today? This is to help you remember your previous punishment. The mistake you made today is worth 407 planetside bashing. I've already memorized it. Why is it 407 times? So spicy. Sun Yinger protested. I'm happy. I set the number randomly. Wang Ying chuckled. If you behave yourself in the future, I can reduce your sentence. Then why don't you just exempt me from the punishment? Sun Yinger felt that she had found an opportunity. That's impossible. Otherwise, wouldn't I have wasted all those planets? Wang Ying said. Previously, I grabbed you and destroyed thousands of planets in the western part of the Milky Way. It was indeed a bit too much. So now, I've already sent my clone over to fix it. It should be fixed tomorrow. When it's fixed, I'll take you to the execution. In Wang Ying's opinion, a dishonest woman like Sun Yinger who was full of evil thoughts must be punished. Sun Yinger's face was full of grievance. Why do I understand? I think it's the same if I execute you the day after tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. You have to give me a chance to reduce my sentence. I don't want you to think. I want me to think. Wang Ying pinched Sun Yinger's skinny but smooth cheeks. He carefully felt the softness from his fingertips. He felt that the girl was about to cry. He couldn't help but laugh in his heart. Are you a fruit? You can cry just by pinching? Does the Void Master like to cry so much? Who cried? Sun Yinger pursed her lips and puffed up her cheeks, trying to hold back her tears. Very good. Wang Ying gently brushed away the tears on the girl's eyelashes. In the future, you are not allowed to cry in front of me. This is the fourth rule I set for you. Demon. You are a demon. Other than a demon, Sun Yinger felt that she couldn't find any words to describe Wang Ying. It seems that your understanding of me is not very clear. Wang Ying let go of Sun Yinger's hand. The man and woman stayed in this position for a long time. Only then did Wang Ying stand up from the ground. Also, the Lord has something to ask you. Humph, who wants to tell you? Demon pervert. No. He's a perverted demon. Sun Yinger scolded in a very soft voice, as if she had used up all her strength. However, in Wang Ying's opinion, this kind of scolding sounded more like a spoiled child. Not only would it not anger others, but it also made Wang Ying want to bully Sun Yinger even more. He tried to control his urge to bully Sun Yinger and said in a calm tone, "If you answer well, you can reduce your sentence. Think about it." "I will." Sun Yinger quickly nodded. Once she thought about the 407 times she would have to face the planar wall tomorrow. Despair was written all over her face. At this critical moment, it was better to reduce as much as possible. After you become the Lord of the Void, what will happen to the old Void Lord? Wang Ying asked. Of course he will retire. The Void creatures can't die anyway, Sun Yinger replied. Very good. Wang Ying nodded in satisfaction. I have a second question. Tell me first. I might not know. Do you know anything about the fortune teller? Since you are Miss Sun's shadow, I think you might have heard about the fortune teller. Isn't he just a swindler? I've seen what he looks like. Sun Yinger said. However, when the words were about to come out of her mouth, her mind suddenly went blank. She couldn't remember anything. This feeling terrified Sun Yinger. This can't be. It's clearly in my mind. But why I can't remember it? Sun Yinger's expression was abnormally anxious, and the teardrops began to roll in her eyes again. Wang Ying guessed that Sun Yinger didn't mean to not cooperate this time, so he didn't blame her. However, he couldn't understand why Sun Yinger was so anxious to the point that she was about to cry. It's okay if you can't remember, I don't blame you, Wang Ying said. Really? Sun Yinger couldn't believe it. Really? Wang Ying nodded. Wang Ying's mouth was actually able to speak human language. She was afraid that Wang Ying would punish her again if she didn't answer the question. Then how much can my answer reduce my sentence? Sun Yinger asked. 406, Wang Ying answered. 406. That's a lot. Sun Yinger was surprised. No, there are 406 more times. Reduce your sentence by 1. According to the value of your answer just now, it's only worth that much. Wang Ying, just you wait. One day, I will definitely escape to a place where you can't find me. Sun Yinger stared at Wang Ying and pouted. You can try. Wang Ying shrugged and smiled confidently. Chapter 1343. Sun Yinger had been forced by Wang Ying to write her first self-reflection on the moon before she was released. Miss Yinger vividly showed how the word lowly was written in the wording of her self-reflection. She didn't have the guts to act rashly in front of Wang Ying. But when she actually wrote the self-reflection, she had already cursed Wang Ying more than 8,000 times in her heart. For every word she wrote, she cursed 10 times. Wang Ying didn't know where Yinger had learned these swearing words. They didn't seem to be the same. She was even more primitive than Zuan players. In response, Wang Ying set up a fifth rule. Don't let your imagination run wild when you're writing, or you might increase the number of words in your composition. Sun Yinger knew she couldn't resist. She could only stretch out her fingers, pull at her eyelids and stick out her tongue. She swore her dissatisfaction with this behavior. just like a childish ghost. So that night Wang Ying gave Sun Yinger a new nickname, calling her Ying 3 years old. When Wang Ying released her, Sun Yinger found Lotus Sun and Lu Qingyi in a video chat. Both girls were slightly red in the face, and seemed to be in the middle of a heated discussion. What are you talking about? Sun Yinger hurriedly moved closer and turned into a shadow next to Lotus Sunday. There were often people walking around the hospital and old man Sun was next door. Sun Yinger was worried that her human form might be discovered, so she had made this decision. Compared with a human form, a shadow form was safer. Seeing that Lotus Sun wasn't surprised at all to hear her voice, Sun Yinger immediately knew that Lotus Sun had already remembered her existence. As expected of my woman. As expected of Rongrong. Missing, have you finished your self-reflection? You're very sincere, we've all seen it. On the other end of the video chat, Lu Qingyi couldn't help smiling when she saw Sun Yinger return. At the thought of how her self-reflection had actually been publicly executed, Sun Yinger's shadow turned red. He's too much. Why does he have to show everything to others? This Wang Ying. I'll definitely teach him a lesson in the future. Haha, missing, don't be angry. It's actually nothing. President Ying is spurring you on. Lu Qingyi smiled. Cultivating in the void for 100 years might not be as beneficial as staying on Earth for a year. There were benefits to following Ling Jinren. If you really hate Wang Ying, all the more you should stay on Earth. Is that so? Sun Yinger was skeptical. And in essence, your abilities all originate from the Shadow Dao. This was the great Dao ability that Ling Jinren's younger sister had created. If you want to beat Wang Ying, you'll have to curry favor with Ling Jinren's younger sister, said Lu Qingyi. Yes, I understand. Sun Yinger nodded. She had to admit that Lu Qingyi had given her a new train of thought. She was wondering why she couldn't use her Shadow Dao ability in front of Wang Ying. It was likely that Ling Jinren's younger sister had given this hateful Wang Ying some special privileges. What a shameful authority dog. According to Lu Qingyi's directions, as long as he curried favor with Ling Jinren's younger sister and obtained the same special ability as Wang Ying, he wouldn't have to be afraid of her anymore. At the very least, he could shake off Wang Ying's pursuit. Now, Sun Yinger felt that her hatred for Wang Ying had reached a critical point. The claw mark left by Wang Ying on her wrist was like a golden hoop on Sun Wukong's head, making Sun Yinger want to take it off all the time. Rongrong, what are you talking about? I think it's quite lively. Sun Yinger asked at that moment. She wanted to join the conversation between the two women. It's nothing, just a little. Her face was boiling hot, and she was a little embarrassed to say the words. Lu Qingyi quickly took over. It's nothing, just some experience in love. Experience in love? But we're all single here. Sun Yinger thought it was a little funny. I'm afraid you two haven't really fallen in love yet. This old lady has a lot of experience. Lu Qingyi smacked the table and laughed. She was indeed single now. But in the domain of the gods, when she was still that lofty eldest miss of the Lu family, there had been a lot of suitors. And among so many suitors, it was inevitable that there would be a lot of ex-boyfriends. And this was what Lu Qingyi meant by experience. Sounds interesting. Sun Yinger said, then what kind of experience? For example, French kissing Lassie? At the thought of this, steam started to rise from the top of her head again. God knew why Sun Yinger, as her shadow, was actually so bold. She couldn't quite figure it out, but student Wang Ling's shadow, Wang Ying, seemed to have the opposite personality. She was a very domineering type. At this thought, Lotus Sun instantly felt a lot better. Because it seemed that she wasn't the only one who was troubled. Cough cough. Lu Qingyi cleared her throat. Falling in love is a process that every girl or boy goes through. I have experience, but it's only limited to emotional issues. I don't know about other conveniences. You'll have to explore it yourselves. Explore it ourselves? Can you be more specific? Lotus Sun felt that Lu Qingyi was being very vague. Lu Qingyi dropped her forehead into her hand and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You can only explore it yourselves. Do you want me and Miss Sun to simulate French kissing Lassie? Lotus Sun and Sun Yinger. But speaking of which, I also have to kindly remind you. At that moment, Lu Qingyi put on the attitude of a big sister and said, whether it's a girl or a boy, love is love, but you must learn to cherish yourself. Miss Sun is so smart, I think it's very easy for you to understand this. I know. Lotus Sun nodded. Then if you have any other questions you can ask me, Lu Qingyi said with a smile in the video. I do. Sun Yinger volunteered. How many boyfriends did Miss Lu have? I can't remember. A lot, said Lu Qingyi. She didn't try to avoid it, it was just that she really couldn't remember. But even with so many ex-boyfriends, Lu Qingyi was still able to cherish and love herself. Of all these ex-boyfriends, Lu Qingyi remembered that she had only kissed one ex-boyfriend. There were many that she hadn't even been able to hold hands with. Now that these memories had been evoked by Sun Yinger's words, Lu Qingyi felt a little nostalgic. Lotus Sun was about to ask a question when Sun Yinger raised another one. Then how many times did Miss Lu go to bed? Hearing this, Lotus Sun spat out a mouthful of water on the screen. Lu Qingyi was resolute. Not even once. Sun Yinger, wow. Then aren't you a 1,000-year-old virgin? The corners of Lu Qingyi's mouth twitched. She finally understood why Wang Ying couldn't help bullying Sun Yinger. Chapter 1344. Lotus Sun didn't have Sun Yinger's straightforwardness and venomous tongue. It could only be said that as expected of Miss Lotus Sun's shadow, the gap in their personalities was indeed obvious. The point was that while Sun Yinger had a venomous tongue, Lu Qingyi couldn't get angry at all. Yinger's voice was too soft. Even if she heard something outrageous, she would only want to pinch the girl's cheek hard. Miss Lotus Sun, if your personality and your shadow complement each other, I think it might work out. Lu Qingyi smiled in the video call. What? Lotus Sun felt inexplicably hot. With Ling Jinren, you have to take the initiative to drill a nail into that kind of blockhead for your relationship to be solid. Lu Qingyi analyzed. That's right, that's right. Sun Yinger chimed in. Missing can actually help, Lu Qingyi said. Help? Forget it. I still want to live a few more days. Sun Yinger was terrified at the thought of Wang Ying's terrible punishment. When I get the authority one day, I'll definitely teach that guy Wang Ying a lesson. I have to teach him a lesson. Missing, I'm afraid it won't be as easy as you think. Lu Qingyi smiled. Also, why do I feel that you actually don't hate him? After saying this, Sun Yinger instantly became excited. Lotus Sun saw that Sun Yinger's shadow wasn't as smooth as before. As if Lu Qingyi had hit the nail on the head, the shadow's silhouette was like an angry kitten, and it instantly became agitated. Who said that? He's the one I hate the most. After saying that, Sun Yinger slipped away through the crack as if she was fleeing, and who knew where she was going. In front of the screen, Lu Qingyi laughed hysterically. I finally know why President Ying likes to bully Miss Ying. Why? That reaction is too cute. Even his shadow is red when he's fleeing. Lu Qingyi couldn't stop laughing. Actually, even Miss Ying herself might not have thought that she might already like President Ying. Ah? No way. Wang Ying bullied him like that. Lotus Sun covered her little mouth. If she really hated him, why would she blush? Lu Qingyi sked as if she had seen through everything. It seems that this pair of shadows are going to start first. You two masters have to work hard too. Classmate Lu? What nonsense are you talking about? Lotus Sun touched her face and felt that her temperature was starting to rise again. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me anytime. That's all for today, Miss Sunday. Lu Qingyi smiled and ended the video chat. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. She chatted with Lotus Sun for less than an hour. When the words video call terminated appeared on the screen, Lu Qingyi heaved a long sigh of relief. Lotus Sun's questions were finally over. The matter between her and Wang Zhen hadn't been resolved yet. The people of the Wang clan were indeed all blockheads. She had already hinted so clearly, so why couldn't Wang Zhen take the initiative? Lu Qingyi felt very tired. However, she also had her own principles. When it came to matters of the heart, the one who spoke first would definitely lose. Hence, she would never open her mouth to Wang Zhen first. Instead, she was waiting for Wang Zhen to take the initiative to confess to her. Thus, in this situation it was very important to have a wingman who could make people jealous. Senior Gu. At that moment, Lu Qingyi turned her gaze to Gu Xuanji, who was watching TV. Gu Xuanji got goosebumps all over again when Lu Qingyi called him that. Miss Lu, what's the matter? How about going shopping with me at noon today? Let's be lovers for a day? Lu Qingyi asked. Gu Xuanji choked on his fat otaku Coca-Cola, and the shock on his face couldn't be any greater. Lovers? Lovers? On the other side, Sun Yinger, whose face had turned red from Lu Qingyi's words, hit to the side to write her reflection. Her first reflection had been written under Wang Ying's supervision. Although the words she wrote were sincere, they were not from her heart. Now that Wang Ying wasn't by her side, Sun Yinger could finally speak her mind freely. Wang Ying big pervert. Wang Ying big pervert. Wang Ying. Big. Change. *CK. Sun Yinger muttered to herself as she wrote the self-reflection. It was an 800-word reflection. She wrote the words Wang Ying Big Pervert 160 times. Then she smoothly tossed her pen. Ah, done. It was still 5 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, December 2nd. Wang Ling knew that things weren't looking good. He already knew that Lotus Sun's memories hadn't been erased. Everyone was rushing to help her, which put Wang Ling in a very difficult position. A traitor in the crowd wasn't the scariest thing. The scariest thing was that everyone was a traitor. But to put it bluntly, these people were Wang Ling's friends and he wouldn't necessarily do anything excessive to them. Therefore he was in a dilemma. Wang Ling's first instinct was to escape. Escape was shameful, but it was useful. For several hours, Wang Ling studied the bug in his singles curse. He decided to fix the loopholes in singles curse once again. For Wang Ling, developing spells wasn't difficult. Instead, it was more difficult to check for loopholes. Because a lot of the loopholes in spells could only be found through practice. He hadn't used singles curse very often, and it was only after discovering a loophole that Wang Ling would fix. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Wang Ling filled in all the loopholes in singles curse. There definitely wouldn't be a reverse confession bug in singles curse. Now, as long as he put the halo of singles curse on himself, Wang Ling believed that he would completely become an insulator in love. Is it really okay to do this? I just feel like something's going to go wrong. Wang Ying lay on Wang Ling's bed, his head pillowed on his arm as he asked this question. He said he was concerned about Wang Ling, but in fact, his mind was full of Sun Yinger. There were still 16 hours until the 406th planet banging session at 8 o'clock tonight. 16 hours was 960 minutes, or 57,600 seconds. Wang Ying always kept a timer in his heart. He felt like he was a little addicted to bullying Sun Yinger. Who the hell knew why he could give birth to a shadow with this kind of personality? Wang Ling felt that he was becoming more and more unable to understand Wang Ying. With this straightforward personality, it was very easy for problems to crop up in the future. But it wasn't convenient for him to get involved in the affairs of shadows. In any case, singles curse had already been upgraded. Wang Ling's heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally relaxed a little. This time there probably wouldn't be any more bugs. On the other side, Old Man Sun of Huagua Water Curtain Group. After Sun Yinger's secret reminder, he finally patted his head and remembered Wang Ling's confession last time. So it's this kid. The old man rubbed his hands together. He had always been very satisfied with Wang Ling. But even if Lotus Sun was interested in Wang Ling as a grandfather, he couldn't force a boy to like his granddaughter. They were only 16 years old. There was still a long way to go. Someone send me an internal secret message. Old Man Sun raised his arm and called out. Sir, what's the matter? Jiang Xiaoche asked. There's a young man called Wang Ling. From now on, wherever he goes, as long as it's under our Huagua Water Curtain Group, upgrade all services to the highest level, and our group will bear all the costs. All the costs? Including getting a room? Jiang Xiaoche laughed. Classmate Wang would never do something so outrageous. Get lost. The old man kicked Jiang Xiaoche's butt. Chapter 1345. Wang Ling realized that something wasn't right with everyone recently. Ever since he was young. Except for his family members. In fact, Wang Ling had never been crazily pursued by a friend of the opposite sex. This was Lotus Sun's first time. This made Wang Ling a little flustered. Even though he tried his best to pretend to be calm. When he was in junior high, he had thought that he had a crush on a girl. But later, when he thought about it carefully, he didn't think that it might not have been a crush. Later on, Wang Ling felt that it was like an animal lover protecting an injured kitten on the side of the road in the rain. It was the sympathy and compassion of the strong for the weak. So until now, Wang Ling hadn't been able to pinpoint his feelings. Emotional matters were too complicated. He had protected Lotus Sun as a classmate. But, could that really be called liking her? Was it possible that it was also a kind of compassion for the weak? If that was the case, he might have let an innocent person get hurt again. Thus, escape became the path that Wang Ling chose. He knew that he would never be able to take the initiative like Wang Ying. That kind of indomitable spirit, that kind of vigorous vigor. Perhaps it was Wang Ying's existence. Was that what he yearned for but was doing his best to avoid? Who knew? After a sleepless night, Wang Ling looked out the window and saw the sun rise in the east. It was another peaceful day. Wang Ling knew. Lotus Sun's matter hadn't completely come to an end yet. As long as the person behind the scenes wasn't caught, this matter would never settle down. Gu Xuanji realized that something wasn't right with the recent developments. First of all, Lu Qingyi and Wang Zhen seemed to have a connection with each other. But so far neither of them had any intention of confessing. In the wee hours of the morning, his mother had actually asked him to pretend to be her boyfriend. Gu Xuanji instantly felt like he had been struck by lightning at this miraculous operation, which was even scarier than being struck by the divine lightning of heavenly tribulation. Of course, this had happened without Lu Qingyi's knowledge. In order not to expose his true purpose for transmigrating to Earth from the future, Gu Xuanji naturally couldn't expose the truth. But this still gave Gu Xuanji a headache. Before setting off, Gu Xuanji logged onto the Beep Q&A platform to ask questions about what was going to happen to him. Question: My mother wants me to pretend to be her boyfriend. What should I do? Answer 1. To be frank, this is really awkward. So, won't the question host send a photo of your mother? I think you can ask me. I'm a male turtle cultivator. I have a car and I have a ticket. Answer 2. I just got off the immortal ship. The subject's mother must have been a female cultivator who cared about her appearance and paid great attention to taking care of herself. Judging from her behavior, your mother probably doesn't have any friends of the opposite sex, otherwise she wouldn't have asked her son to pretend to be her boyfriend. The second answer hit the nail on the head, instantly rendering Gu Xuanji speechless. True that Lu. Most of the other core members of the battle sect knew who Lu Qingyi was, but they usually didn't have much interaction with her. She asked Ling who Zhu and Yi Ling was. Ling with him. Ling with Ling was she. Ling Teet Ling was she. She didn't have the guts to look for Wang Ling. Since she dared to pair up with Ling Jinren, she had to come out and apologize. Furthermore, Lotus Sun would definitely misunderstand. A woman's jealousy was a very scary thing. Lu Qingyi still wanted to survive on Earth. And given her current economic strength on Earth, there was no way she could beat Lotus Sun. As for looking for Fang Xing, that was even more impossible. Because she was very clear. Fang Xing and Wang Ling were in the same boat. Furthermore, Fang Xing was very mischievous and might sabotage her plan. So in the end, Lu Qingyi turned this wingman's gaze to her. Gu Xuanji suddenly felt a little tired. Pretending to be his mother's boyfriend was a novel experience. Even as a keeper of order, he had never experienced it before. In that instant, Gu Xuanji felt his mind go haywire. He didn't know what to say. At noon, the nightmare that Gu Xuanji had been waiting for finally arrived. Lu Qingyi had dressed herself up beautifully. It was clear that the woman had been preparing for a long time for this plan. Even the clothes she was wearing were brand new, a light purple lace dress with black stockings and high heels. Set off by Lu Qingyi's exquisite figure, Gu Xuanji could indeed sense the alluring mother in the wedding photo album. Gu Xuanji had always seen Lu Qingyi wear number 60 high school uniform, but now that she was wearing this new outfit, she really looked like a different person. Clothes really made the man. What are you spacing out for? Aren't you going to change? Lu Qingyi couldn't help reminding Gu Xuanji when she saw him standing there in a daze. Change? Gu Xuanji looked down at his outfit. He was dressed casually and didn't feel out of place. You don't have a suit? This outfit doesn't match me. Lu Qingyi frowned. This kind of straight man's aesthetic was simply hopeless. Sure enough, there was still a woman in this family who taught the boys how to dress. Fortunately, she was already prepared and took out the high-end suit she had prepared. Where did you get the money? Gu Xuanji was startled. I had a love exchange with Miss Sun last night. Miss Sun was so happy that she sent me 100,000 yuan. It's only a matter of minutes to get a suit. Express delivery is so convenient now. The spirit sword will send it to you in a moment, Lu Qingyi said. This lesson is actually paid? Gu Xuanji was startled. Let me say this first, I didn't take it from Miss Sun, she forced it on me. She said that she'd have to trouble me later if anything happened. She also gave me a black card from Huaguo Water Curtain Group, which gives me a 30% discount on any product under Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Lu Qingyi smiled. She then took the initiative to take off Gu Xuanji's clothes, intending to help him change into them. Gu Xuanji was startled. What are you doing, Lu Qingyi? What else? I'm helping you change your clothes. This action instantly reminded Gu Xuanji of when Lu Qingyi had helped him change his clothes when he was a child. Then Gu Xuanji's memory went haywire for a brief moment. Thus, in a moment of desperation, Gu Xuanji let it slip. Mom, don't move. I'll do it myself. Mom? Lu Qingyi was stunned. What I mean is, please don't move, I'll do it myself. Gu Xuanji was quick-witted and immediately smoothed things over. Lu Qingyi patted Gu Xuanji's bouncy butt, stared at his crotch and couldn't help laughing. I've met countless people and seen everything. Why would I care about a few grams of your flesh? After saying that, Lu Qingyi turned the door handle in her high heels without looking back. Hurry up and change. I'll wait for you at the elevator. Gu Xuanji was already in a mess. Chapter 1346. A luxurious red convertible sports car was parked at the ground floor of the staff apartment. Lu Qingyi had rented the sports car with Huaguo Water Curtain Group's black card, and it cost 2,000 yuan a day. Now that she had some spare cash, she naturally wouldn't feel distressed over a mere 2,000 yuan. Since it was a bait to make Wang Jin jealous, today he had to settle everything in one go. No matter how much money she had to spend, Lu Qingyi wouldn't feel the pinch. Of course, he couldn't just leave and not enter. Gu Xuanji sat in the driver's seat and noticed that Lu Qingyi was chatting with someone. The woman's typing speed was incredibly fast. He didn't know where he learned the lightning finger technique, but his tapping speed was comparable to Takashi Kato. I'm chatting with classmate Lotus Sun, Lu Qingyi said as she typed. Talk about what? Gu Xuanji was curious. You're pretending to be my boyfriend today and my goal is to hook up Wang Jin so I can teach you how to be jealous. I reckon we'll have to spend a lot today so we can't just spend without spending. Lu Qingyi said with a smile. Gu Xuanji clicked his tongue. He felt that the woman in front of him was just as his father had said. She was a calculative person. He would never let himself suffer a loss. Didn't you say that you wouldn't accept money? Gu Xuanji asked with a smile. Nominally, of course it's free. That's doing Miss Lotus Sun a favor. In order to return the favor, Miss Lotus Sun would definitely give me a red packet. This way, I'll owe classmate Lotus Sun a favor and improve my relationship with her. At the same time, accepting the red packet won't make classmate Lotus Sun feel uncomfortable, said Lu Qingyi. Hearing this, Gu Xuanji was amazed in his heart. His mother's move was too brilliant, and he was left in the dust. Speaking of which, is there really friendship between girls? Gu Xuanji started the sports car and asked a curious question. In fact, he also wanted to hear his mother's opinion. Although pretending to be her boyfriend was awkward. However, this was also an opportunity for him to get to know his mother better. Of course there is. Lu Qingyi replied as she typed. The premise is that the boyfriends aren't the same. Otherwise, even if you're my best friend, you'll fall out with me at any time. Gu Xuanji, where are we going? The Changyang Cultivation Aquarium in the city center, Lu Qingyi said. Why go there? Wei Ji introduced Wang Zhen to a part-time job. There. Although it was a little tough, the pay was high. Since I want him to be jealous, of course I have to show off in front of him. Lu Qingyi imagined the scene in her head. Think about it. A man is working hard in an aquarium, and at that moment, the girl he's interested in suddenly shows up with a pretty boy and walks back and forth intimately in front of him. So I'm a gigolo? It's just an example, little brother. Don't mind it so much. Lu Qingyi said with a smile. Do you feel like you're burning with anger when you think about it this way? Indeed. Gu Xuanji nodded. Have you ever thought about what if I get beaten up by him? Come on, can he beat you? Lu Qingyi laughed. So, you've calculated everything? Gu Xuanji smiled wryly. I've been planning since I came back from the Nine Dragon Mountain tournament. Gu Xuanji sighed again. A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. His mother was too scary. But from his own point of view, Gu Xuanji was definitely going to add to the mess. Otherwise, he would have to run away with another man. But if his mother ran away with another man, not only would his mother be gone, but he would also be gone. The above sounded a little like a curse, but it was definitely a cry from the bottom of Gu Xuanji's heart. Heavens! Save the child. Halfway through the sports car, Gu Xuanji asked another magical question. Have you ever thought about what if your operation fails? My plan is very detailed, it's impossible for it to fail. Lu Qingyi kept smiling. She was very confident in her sweet and sour carp plan. But what Lu Qingyi didn't know was, there was a surprise waiting for her in the aquarium, a few hours ago. In the early hours of that morning, Wang Jin received a text message from Gu Xuanji. Lu Qingyi's sweet and sour carp plan was written on it. Actually planning to pretend to be my boyfriend to make me jealous. Wang Jin stared at Gu Xuanji's message, the corners of his mouth twitching. This kind of behavior was no different from trying to provoke him so that he would confess first. What a vicious plan. Good brother. Thank you for telling me all this. Wang Jin texted Gu Xuanji to express his thanks. Then he quickly deleted all the chat records. Lu Qingyi definitely couldn't do it alone. Thus, Wang Jin made a decision. Take this opportunity to counterattack. You can find someone to pretend to be your boyfriend. Then I can also find someone to pretend to be my girlfriend. Let's see who gives in first. Then a brand new plan sprouted in Wang Zhen's heart. Of course, the premise of this plan was, he had to find someone who would pretend to be his girlfriend. For a moment, Wang Zhen was distressed. He didn't have many friends of the opposite sex. Quite a few girls from number 60 high were interested in him, and had even written him love letters. Wang Zhen read a few of them. They were so mushy. If he asked these little girls for help, they would naturally agree. But what Wang Zhen was afraid of was that this group of kids would take it seriously and turn it into a reality. At that time, not only would he not be able to catch Lu Qingyi, he would also be accused of playing with feelings. He thought about it. Wang Zhen thought of a very suitable candidate. It was just that it wouldn't be easy to invite this person. Using his lifelong literary skills, Wang Zhen tried hard to think of the right words. He sent a text message to the person he had in mind. 6 o'clock in the morning. Wang Zhen pretended that he had nothing to do and went out to work. This was a job that Wei Ji had recommended to him after returning from Nine Dragon Mountain when he heard that Wang Zhen was short of money. The main job was to be a breeder and feed them. Because spirit beasts were wild to a certain extent, Wang Zhen might not have been chosen if it wasn't for his thick skin and his resistance to bites. The actual time of the report was 9 o'clock. But before that, Wang Zhen needed to see someone first. In Fang Xing's family noodle shop. Brother Fang Xing. My happiness. I'm counting on you. Understand, Wang Zhen knelt on the ground and kowtowed sincerely. Your matter sounds very interesting. It's not that I don't want to help, but I'll say this first. I don't accept large-scale contact. Don't worry, classmate Fang, I won't accept it either. I'm just putting on a show. At most, I'll borrow a seat. Borrow a seat? All right. Fang Xing smiled. Miss Lu has never seen me in female form. As long as I dress up a little, she won't recognize me. It's just that. It was just this favor. He couldn't do it for free. Wang Zhen wasn't an idiot, and immediately understood what Fang Xing meant. Classmate Fang, what do you want? As long as I can do it, I'll do it. I'm not in a hurry. Let me ask you a question first. Fang Xing asked. I heard that a lot of people thoughtfully sent Miss Sun a USB flash drive to help her recover her memory? I didn't. Wang Zhen's answer was resolute and decisive. Don't be so nervous, it's fine if you sent it. Miss Sun becoming a core member of Battle Sect is inevitable. If someone wants to send a USB flash drive, then so be it. What I care about is whether classmate Lotus Sun really likes classmate Wang Ling that much. At that moment, Fang Xing cupped his chin and spoke. Sounding out Lotus Sun's attitude had always been part of his plan. He felt that this was a particularly good opportunity. What do you mean, Brother Fang? I heard that Brother Wang Zhen is actually very popular at number 60 high. That's good. No need to be humble, Brother Wang Zhen. Fang Xing smiled. What I want you to help me with is actually as easy as lifting a finger. I want you to transfer the love letters from those girls to Ling Jinren's home and his desk. It'd be best if you also put a few copies in classmate Lotus Sun's desk. But Brother Fang Xing can also do this. Guys use different words than girls. Fang Xing voiced her distress. I often get letters from guys. Wang Ling was speechless. Wang Zhen? Both genders, as expected of classmate Fang Xing, who was known as the heartthrob of millions. But will I be able to do it? But Wang Zhen still had some misgivings about Fang Xing's suggestion. Why not? Just change the header a little. After removing the Zhen from Wang Zhen, it'll be classmate Wang. Who knows if it's for you or Wang Ling? Fang Xing said. May I ask why you're doing this? Wang Zhen was puzzled. Fang Xing smiled. I want to see if classmate Lotus Sun will be jealous. Fine. Deal. Thus, Wang Zhen gritted his teeth and agreed. At that moment, the two men reached a consensus. Chapter 1347. In the morning, Wang Ling chose a place to test out the effects of his improved singles curse. Normally, Wang Ling wouldn't be in the mood to specifically test spells. But there were still a few days before the start of school at number 60 high. Wang Ling had a lot of time to spare. In addition, he had finished his homework for the day and had already recorded his study video. So he might as well go out and test his spells. It was said that Headmaster Chen had spent a lot on the school's green environment. Wang Ling actually really wanted to see what would happen when classes resumed next Monday. He really wanted to see how number 60 high would change. Wang Ling dressed up very tightly. He didn't take off any of his mask, sunglasses, and cap. A high-collared linen windbreaker and a pair of slim-fit jeans showed off his good figure to the fullest. As for Wang Ling's outfit today, Book of Sage Immortal's comment was that he looked a little like a private detective who went out to investigate his mistress. So before Wang Ling left, he stuffed Book of Sage Immortal into Lord Ma's mouth. To test the spell, he naturally needed a suitable location. As for the location, Wang Ling already had an answer for it. The Changyang Cultivation Aquarium in the city center. It was a place where a lot of couples would hang out. That was right. The targets of Wang Ling's spell test were couples who openly displayed their affection in public places like the aquarium. But Wang Ling himself wasn't a member of the FFF team. Breaking up someone's marriage was a very wicked thing to do. So Wang Ling had actually made some preparations for this. He added a temporary additional condition to Single's curse. 30 minutes after the spell took effect, the effect of Single's curse would be removed, and the couple would completely forget all the unpleasant memories between the two of them. As long as this condition existed, Wang Ling could carry out the test normally without ruining the relationship between the young couple. At around 9 o'clock in the morning, Wang Ling had already arrived at the front of the aquarium. This was the largest aquarium in the city center. The entire building was made of glazed tiles in the shape of a whale. At noon there would be a fountain show at the top of the aquarium, and a large number of people would come here every day to watch. Even on a working day, the front of the aquarium was still unprecedentedly grand. There was a long line at the ticket window. Wang Ling had been in line for nearly 30 minutes. "Sir, please show me your second-generation ID card. You have to register with your real name to enter the venue," the young lady at the ticket window said politely. Wang Ling voluntarily handed over his ID card. After the young lady scanned his identity information, she stood up in shock. "I didn't know Director Wang was here. Please don't blame me, President Wang." The corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched. "Director Wang? When did he become CEO Wang?" "Director Wang, you can actually use the green passageway at the side. You can enter the coffin with your ID. You don't need to buy a ticket." The young lady smiled and politely pointed at the green passageway at the side of the aquarium. Wang Ling was confused and had no idea what was going on. After he left the group, he pinched his fingers and made a divination. Only then did he realize that it was Old Man Sun's doing. So this aquarium is also a property of Huaguo Water Curtain Group? Wang Ling had a slightly helpless expression on his face. "Aren't you a drug dealer? Why was the underground industrial chain so rich?" There weren't many people who could enter directly from the green channel, so Wang Ling didn't need to line up at all. As long as you swipe your ID card, the fence of the green passage will open automatically. "Welcome, Director Wang." As soon as Wang Ling swiped his ID card, the AI device in the fence made a sound, which gave him a fright. This was too high profile. It made Wang Ling feel a little uncomfortable. After entering the gate, a tall beautiful woman immediately took the initiative to greet him from among the row of VIP guides standing in front of the gate. "Director Wang, do you need a guide?" Wang Ling shook his head and refused on the spot. His main purpose was to test his spells, and it was too inconvenient for someone to follow him around. "Very well, Director Wang." The guide had a smile on her face the whole time, and then took the initiative to hand over a map of the venue. "Director Wang, you can use your ID card to enjoy free VIP service for all the facilities and restaurants in the aquarium." This map was specially made for the venue and had automatic positioning and navigation functions. Wang Ling could even directly place an order through the smart map. The staff in the museum would immediately send over the items he wanted. The night he opened the restaurant, Wang Ling scanned the dazzling array of high-end seafood delicacies. After discovering that there weren't any crispy noodle snacks, he angrily clicked the X in the top right corner of the map. Then he checked the map again and walked in the direction of the Lover Pavilion. In the Lover Pavilion, all the water spirit beasts kept in captivity appeared in pairs, and there were a lot of couples who would watch. For Wang Ling, this was the perfect holy land to test his spells. He followed the navigation function of the map all the way. At that moment, two familiar figures flashed past Wang Ling's eyes. He saw Wang Zhen in his aquarium uniform, and he also walked in the direction of the Lover Pavilion. Next to Wang Zhen, a very beautifully dressed girl gently held his arm. Wang Ling rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things. At the same time, Wang Ling's heart shook like thunder. Wang Zhen in his work uniform. And Fang Xing in her female form. Why were these two people here? And it looked like they were very close. Wang Ling was a mess. When experts exchanged blows, every move was fatal. This was the current situation of Lu Qingyi and Wang Zhen. After parking the sports car in the aquarium's underground parking lot, Gu Xuanji gripped the steering wheel, sweat running down his temples. He didn't know why, but he had a bad feeling. What are you spacing out for? Get out of the car. Why do you look so preoccupied today? Lu Qingyi felt that something wasn't right with Wang Zhen. Gu Xuanji opened his mouth and almost followed up by calling Lu Qingyi mom. It wasn't easy to pretend to be mom-as boyfriend. Now, Gu Xuanji had to think carefully every time he opened his mouth. He couldn't go along with what Lu Qingyi said. If he said mom carelessly, everything would be exposed. I just don't think it's good for us to do this, right? Gu Xuanji wanted to retreat, mainly because he really did have a very bad feeling about this. I'm here, what are you afraid of? If anything happens, I'll take full responsibility. Lu Qingyi was very determined as she pulled Gu Xuanji's hand and dragged him out. Helpless, Gu Xuanji could only compromise. Mom, slow down, Lu Qingyi. Gu Xuanji, please slow down. Lu Qingyi let go and frowned. Oh, this isn't the first time I've heard you call me mom. Had he been discovered? Gu Xuanji's expression instantly tensed up. Just when he thought Lu Qingyi might have already guessed everything, at that moment, Lu Qingyi suddenly bent down and asked concernedly, do you have a very serious Oedipus complex? Gu Xuanji? It's okay, I actually don't discriminate against mom's baby. Even if you look younger than me, you can't just call a girl mom, understand? But given our working relationship, I won't be angry if you call me mom in private. Who asked my son to be so handsome? Lu Qingyi smiled and reached out to rub Gu Xuanji's head. Gu Xuanji was shocked again. Damn her brain circuit, it was too amazing. For a moment he actually found it hard to resist. At that moment Lu Qingyi smiled. So, since I'm your mom as a son, shouldn't you listen to mom and not let her get hurt? Gu Xuanji wanted to cry but had no tears. I want to grow up quickly so I can protect her. Lu Qingyi nodded in satisfaction. Good boy. Come with mom and pretend to be a boyfriend. Gu Xuanji. Chapter 1348. Gu Xuanji actually regretted taking the initiative to inform Wang Zhen earlier. His original intention was to make Wang Zhen feel that his mother, Lu Qingyi, was a very scheming woman, and thus make Wang Zhen feel disgusted with her. In the end, he hadn't expected Wang Zhen to be agitated by Wang Zhen. He actually found a fake girlfriend to pretend to be a couple. The uneasiness in Gu Xuanji's heart intensified when he heard this news. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. As soon as Wang Ling entered the aquarium, Old Man Sun already had his eyes on him. The feedback mechanism of his ID card information sent Wang Ling's entry to Old Man Sun's cell phone. On the side, Jiang Xiaoche frowned. Master, there's really something wrong with this person. He's a man, yet he went to the aquarium alone? Will there be any psychological problems? Old Man Sun was obviously a little uncomfortable with Jiang Xiaoche's words. Who said that a person can't go to the aquarium alone? Jiang Xiaoche, I feel that student Wang is definitely going to the aquarium today for an inspection. He must want to ask Rongrong out, so he came here in advance to do his homework. Today, Old Man Sun's imagination was as powerful as ever. Jiang Xiaoche, is that so? That must be it. Old Man Sun had always been very confident in his guesses. Actually, Changyang wasn't the only aquarium in the city center, so why had Wang Ling chosen it? They must have come because they knew that this was the property of their family group. It was obvious that he was here to do his homework for his precious granddaughter. Jiang Xiaoche said, even if what old master said is right, but he didn't have to spend money to invite Miss to this place. This is letting this kid off too lightly. Old Man Sun rolled his eyes. What do you know? This was called having a sense of economy. Do you think classmate Wang will be like you, living a luxurious life? It's not easy for a 16-year-old to have such a frugal view of the economy. Should be encouraged. This time Jiang Xiaoche finally understood. Old Man Sun seemed very satisfied with his future grandson-in-law. This directly caused everything he said to be wrong. It was too difficult for him. However, Jiang Xiaoche felt that he still had a chance in the current situation. He had grown up with Lotus Sunday. Moreover, he had been secretly in love with Lotus Sun for a long time. How could he let someone else take over a cabbage that he had watched grow up? Wang Ling, just you wait. The Sun family's grandson-in-law will definitely be me. Jiang Xiaoche swore in his heart. He had already assigned some tasks to the spies at the aquarium to trip Wang Ling up. From Jiang Xiaoche's point of view, since Sunny Yuan's eyes were already blinded, then he had to give him a strong dose of medicine. It would be best if Wang Ling did. Complete social death. He carrot undercurd. Today's aquarium was unexpectedly lively. In front of the lover house, many couples gathered here. This lover house is really interesting. Did you see that? All the spirit beasts in the restaurant come in pairs. A couple said through the huge glass wall in front of them. Many cultivators who were passionately in love even naturally hugged and kissed in such an atmosphere. This made Wang Ling feel out of place on his own. In front of the railing in front of the house, Wang Ling saw many couples writing their names on red ribbons for blessings, and then tying them to the railing. At that moment, through the glass wall, Wang Ling saw a pair of swirling spirit sea lions doing something indescribable. The male swirling spirit sea lion was lying on top of the female. Every time someone tied a red ribbon to the railing, the male sea lion's body would squirm 5 or 6 times. Wang Ling used the map in his hand to look up information on swirling spirit sea lions in the lover house. In the end, he discovered that they actually had another nickname, Water Teddy. Because they were naturally sensitive to red, male swirling spirit sea lions had an unusual reaction to red objects during mating, which greatly increased the chances of a female sea lion getting pregnant. Wang Ling. His knowledge had really increased. Wang Ling felt that the amount of information in front of him was even greater than when he had watched the world of spirit beasts as a child. But as a good teenager with a proper outlook on the world, Wang Ling wouldn't focus his attention on these embarrassing images. In contrast, what he was more concerned about was Wang Zhen and Fang Xing in her female form in the lover house. "It's the zookeeper." Seeing Wang Zhen in his staff uniform appear, a passerby called out softly. At that moment, the female Fang Xing, who was pretending to be Wang Zhen's girlfriend, was next to him. She was holding a bucket, and Wang Zhen had his arm around her waist as he grabbed fresh fish from the bucket and fed it to her. This scene, which Wang Ling found incomparably painful to the eyes, actually made quite a number of couples who didn't know the truth feel that it was very romantic. Oh my god! The zookeeper is actually holding his girlfriend's waist the whole time. This boyfriend power is just too amazing. As expected of the lover house. Even the zookeeper came with his girlfriend. It's so sweet. Honey, I want to hold your waist too. Separated by the thick glass wall, the two of them talked and laughed, looking unusually intimate. Almost no one could clearly hear what this young couple was talking about. But Wang Ling could hear it clearly. The two of them looked like they were smiling, but were in fact communicating through ventriloquism. "Brother Fang, isn't it a little too early for you to act? I don't think Qingyi is here yet. You don't understand, this is the only way it's real enough. I think the atmosphere's pretty good now. Once Miss Lu and Gu Xuanji arrive, we'll directly go big. Directly go big. Fake position." Oh, Wang Zhen was enlightened. But why is Brother Fang so skilled? You haven't eaten pork before, but you've seen a pig run. Fang Xing smiled. In fact, he had always planned to enter the entertainment industry, whether it was in a male or female form. As long as he made his debut, Fang Xing believed that he would definitely become an idol. For this reason, Fang Xing had actually read a lot of books on acting, and naturally knew how to fake a kiss. At that moment, outside the glass wall, Wang Ling was once again thunderstruck by what he heard. What the hell? Lu Qingyi and Gu Xuanji were also coming here? Wang Ling was stupefied. Why was the circuit diagram so messy today? But no matter what the hell these two groups were up to, his plan to test out spells couldn't be interrupted. At that moment, Wang Ling's gaze was fixed on one of the couples in the room, and he shook his finger. At that moment, a valiant and familiar figure suddenly leapt into Wang Ling's line of sight. His spell had been aimed at the passers-by. But Wang Ling never expected Lu Qingyi to suddenly rush forward at that moment and block the passers-by couple. Wang Ling, oh ho! It's over. Chapter 1349. The effect of Single's curse was actually to block confessions and reverse psychological effects. As long as the target was under the effect of the spell, all the courtship and confessions that the target received during this period would be reversed. Like would become hate. Strong points would become weak points. Take Lotus Sun's confession to Wang Ling as an example. For a previous review, see Chapter 1090, Ways to Attract Attention. The main thing was that Wang Ling hadn't expected Lotus Sun to actually imitate Xia Ming. When she had said the word hate, because of the spell's effect, it had instantly become like. But Wang Ling had now filled in this reverse loophole. That was to say, the current Single's curse wouldn't be in the same situation as last time. Furthermore, Wang Ling had added something else to the mix, which was the psychological reversal effect of Single's curse. When someone confessed, not only would the confessor say the exact opposite of what they wanted to express, they would even slap the other party, fully achieving the characteristics of being single based on ability. It was just that Wang Ling hadn't expected this spell to work on Lu Qingyi. It was really too much of a coincidence. Lu Qingyi actually directly emerged from the crowd and stood in front of that passerby couple. But the problem was that Gu Xuanji and Lu Qingyi were in fact a fake couple. Now, even Wang Ling didn't know what would happen next. In short, the charaba in the lover house today was exceptionally shocking. Even Wang Ling, who was watching from the side in secret, felt like he was shivering. When Lu Qingyi arrived at the lover house, through the glass wall in front of her, she saw Wang Zhen and another strange woman lovey-dovey. A surge of anger instantly bubbled up in her heart. But very quickly, the woman's rationality overcame the flames that suddenly sprang up. Since she could use Gu Xuanji as a fake boyfriend, Wang Zhen could naturally find a woman to pretend to be his fake girlfriend. This guy, what the hell was he doing? Actually, not only wasn't Lu Qingyi angry at this thought, she was actually a little happy. You were pretty angry just now, why now? Gu Xuanji was shocked at how quickly Lu Qingyi's expression changed. Think about it, this idiot actually thinks the same way I do. They all found a fake partner to impersonate in order to make the other party jealous. This proves that our brain circuits are actually quite similar. Lu Qingyi laughed at that moment. Gu Xuanji simply wanted to slap himself when he heard that. Sure enough, he had been too smart for his own good. He shouldn't have told Wang Zhen that Lu Qingyi had asked him to pretend to be her boyfriend. However, things had already developed to this point. Gu Xuanji still wanted to struggle. How can you be sure that the girl inside is fake? What if it's a real girlfriend? Real girlfriend? Lu Qingyi glanced coldly at Fang Xing, who was in female form, and chuckled. In any case, Wang Zhen is the young master of the Wang family. What kind of girl hasn't he seen in the domain of the gods? How could he find such an average-looking girl as his girlfriend? At that moment, Gu Xuanji looked up at the female Fang Xing. In her female form, Fang Xing had a unique style. She absolutely couldn't be called a common face, and her sexy and voluptuous figure made the imaginations of many male cultivators with Dao partners run wild. Is it really that impressive? The corners of Gu Xuanji's mouth twitched. Isn't that impressive? Although I haven't seen this girl before, I feel like I've seen her before. It's as if I've seen her somewhere before. Usually, people who have this kind of look aren't common. Lu Qingyi shrugged, completely disregarding the female Fang Xing as an opponent. Gu Xuanji felt that Lu Qingyi's terror was already indescribable. It could only be said that her F***king intuition was astonishingly strong. She had actually seen through so many things with just one glance. At that moment, Lu Qingyi suddenly pulled Gu Xuanji's hand forward a little. This angle was just enough for Wang Zhen to see them. She had already noticed that Wang Zhen was already looking in their direction out of the corner of his eye. She immediately looped her arms around Gu Xuanji's neck and began her plan of action. Then shall we begin? Begin what? Gu Xuanji's face was full of nervousness. His mother was too close to him. So close that Gu Xuanji could hear his mother's breathing and heartbeat. Gu Xuanji turned his face away. He was afraid that if he didn't pay attention, his mother would kiss him. Even though Gu Xuanji's first kiss had already been taken away by Lu Qingyi when he was born. But he was already so big now. Of course he couldn't accept his mother's kiss. Logically speaking, don't you keepers of order also know countless people? Why are you so nervous? Lu Qingyi thought Gu Xuanji's reaction was a little funny. Gu Xuanji instinctively dodged backwards. In fact, this wasn't a reaction from a young boy. Instead, it was an instinctive reverence for his biological mother. Unfortunately, in Lu Qingyi's view, Gu Xuanji's reaction was no different from that of a young boy who had just entered the field of love. You're too nervous. Forget it, I won't kiss you. I won't kiss you. Lu Qingyi sighed. She really wanted to kiss Gu Xuanji and was even going to stick out her tongue. But seeing Gu Xuanji's reaction, she suddenly couldn't bring herself to do it. You're going to kiss me? Gu Xuanji was stupefied. We're both adults. What's wrong with a kiss? Lu Qingyi smiled. At that moment, she glanced at Wang Zhen out of the corner of her eye. Look at the pair inside, they're acting so well. You can say that this borrowing is flawless. You can even tell? Gu Xuanji was astonished again. I've been through this after all. If it's a real kiss, the surface temperature of their bodies will keep rising, which will dry up the surrounding air and affect the humidity to some extent. I've already reached the point where I can judge whether the other party is really kissing based on the humidity of the surrounding air. Then little Gu, let's get started. At that moment, Lu Qingyi's gaze fell back on Gu Xuanji's face, and she cupped his cheek. Didn't you say you weren't going to kiss? You're too nervous and kissing would be too fake. How about this, confess to me but you have to say it out loud, got it? At that moment, Lu Qingyi gave Gu Xuanji another difficult problem. Confessed to his biological mother, Gu Xuanji now particularly regretted agreeing to let Lu Qingyi pretend to be his boyfriend. Confessed to his biological mother? That was too outrageous. Are you going to say it or not? Lu Qingyi looked at Gu Xuanji with great pressure. At that moment, Gu Xuanji really couldn't take the pressure anymore, and already had the idea of revealing the truth. But before he could say anything, Lu Qingyi's eyes darkened. Stop dawdling, if you're not going to say it, I'll say it. Then Gu Xuanji saw, Lu Qingyi abruptly cupped his face in her hands and loudly confessed in front of everyone. Bah! You're a two-timing scumbag. Crawl for me. Gu Xuanji? Even Lu Qingyi herself was shocked when she said this, because this wasn't what she wanted to say at all. But before she could explain, her right hand had already stretched out uncontrollably. Bah! The next moment there was the crisp sound of a slap. It was Lu Qingyi's slap on Gu Xuanji's face. Gu Xuanji wasn't on guard at all. After being hit by his biological mother, he flew out on the spot, smashed through the glass wall of the lover's house and smashed into the pool. What? For a moment, water splashed everywhere and a huge column of water shot up. Several sea lions were so frightened that they fainted on the spot. Wang Zhen was alarmed. Hadn't they agreed to pretend to be her boyfriend to make him jealous? Why had Gu Xuanji suddenly become a scumbag? Brother Fang, what's going on? Wang Zhen elbowed Fang Xing. On the side, Fang Xing was also bewildered. I'm very sorry, I don't understand either. Chapter 1350. Wang Ling hadn't expected his singles curse to actually appear like this. Gu Xuanji's entire body was sent flying. In that moment, Wang Ling felt as if all his movements had slowed down. Then Gu Xuanji made a full 360-degree spin and fell into the water, creating a huge splash. For a moment, the scene in the lover house became chaotic. Lu Qingyi didn't know why she had these thoughts and actions that were completely at odds with her will. Countless people's gazes fell on the chaotic scene. Lu Qingyi covered her face and swiftly fled the scene. What now? Fang Xing was speechless. I'll go take a look. Then what about Gu Xuanji? I'll have to trouble Brother Fang to help me look after him. I'll settle the score with him when I come back. All right. Fang Xing nodded. Wang Zhen guessed that Gu Xuanji had most likely done something wrong to Lu Qingyi. Otherwise, how could Lu Qingyi have flipped out on the spot and gotten so angry in front of everyone? Without much time to think, he directly put down what he was doing and directly chased after Gu Xuanji. At the same time, Wang Zhen was also wondering what kind of grudge there was between Lu Qingyi and Gu Xuanji. He recalled what Lu Qingyi had shouted just now. Two-timing? What did that mean? Was there really something going on between Gu Xuanji and her? In the end, Lu Qingyi had found out? Wang Zhen was furious. The Grand Keeper of Order. How could she do such an absurd thing? When Gu Xuanji climbed out of the water, the aquarium's curator rushed over upon hearing the news. The curator was calculating the damage. The broken glass wall had to be completely replaced. This piece of glass alone would cost $500,000. In addition, there were the 5 sea lions that had fainted from fright floating in the water. Mental compensation was also needed. If they were frightened during mating, it was very likely that this batch of sea lions would have sexual dysfunction. Given that they were mating one-on-one, why would 5 sea lions have mental disorders? The answer was very simple, because 3 of them had chosen to have a meeting together. The rehabilitation costs are a lot of money. At that moment, the goateed curator looked at the scene in front of him with a worried expression. He was holding a calculator in his hand as he calculated the damage. At that moment, Wang Ling stepped forward and patted the curator on the shoulder. Wang Ling hadn't expected things to escalate to this point. Wang Ling felt that Gu Xuanji shouldn't be the only one to bear the cost. This wasn't a small expense, and given his limited pocket money, he definitely couldn't afford it. However, an equivalent exchange could still be conducted. The goateed aquarium director felt someone pat his shoulder, and when he turned his head, he saw Wang Ling's figure. It was the CEO Wang mentioned in the company's report. The curator immediately reacted. He had never seen Wang Ling before. But when he entered the building, he received a notification on his cell phone. Although there were a lot of people in the venue today, Wang Ling was the only high-class customer who could enter through the VIP passage. In addition, there was the VIP location map in Wang Ling's hand. The aquarium curator instantly identified the person. Wang Ling gestured for him to keep quiet, then looked at the mess in front of him. Then he handed a talisman to the aquarium curator. This was a death substitution talisman that Survival Heavenly Tao had drawn for Lotus Sunday. There were currently more than 60,000 of them in his drawer. This talisman wasn't worth much in Wang Ling's hands, but it was priceless outside. The aquarium curator could be considered a knowledgeable person. He carefully examined the talisman. Very quickly, he recognized that it was probably the legendary death substitution talisman. One talisman was worth hundreds of millions of yuan. Not to mention compensation. He could even build a new aquarium on the side. Xiao Wang, wait! The curator hurriedly chased after Wang Ling and led him to a secluded spot. He said to Wang Ling in a low and respectful voice, "If these people are Xiao Wang's acquaintances, then this museum won't pursue the matter of compensation. Xiao Wang's death substitution talisman is priceless. This humble museum is overwhelmed by the favor and really can't bear it." Wang Ling shook his head. He was the cause of this incident, so compensation for the losses was only right. Furthermore, the death substitution talisman wasn't worth much to begin with. As long as he didn't have to hand over the crispy noodle snacks, everything was fine. The curator didn't dare accept Wang Ling's money, mainly because he was afraid of being blamed by his superiors. But now that he saw Xiao Wang in front of him so resolute, he hesitated for a moment. Why don't I accept it first and then ask my superiors to return it? The curator thought. This was probably the best way to deal with it for now. On the other side, Old Man Sun was also extremely moved when he heard what had happened in the aquarium. Wang Ling, Wang Zhen, and the other two were classmates to begin with. Thus, Old Man Sun didn't think it was strange that Wang Ling had helped them. In fact, Old Man Sun actually didn't care at all about what had happened to Lu Qingyi and the others. All his thoughts were focused on Wang Ling, as expected of classmate Wang Ling. Old Man Sun pounded the table in excitement, who knew how happy he was. Isn't it just helping a classmate compensate money? On the side, Jiang Xiaoche wiped at his sweat. What do you know? Classmate Wang Ling was actually willing to put his life on the line for the sake of a few classmates' emotional disputes at the aquarium. Such loyalty is very much like this old man when I was young. After saying this, Old Man Sun flashed his phone. Do you know what this is? This was a photo of a talisman taken by the director of the aquarium. Since the curator didn't know how to deal with the death substitute talisman, he sent it to Old Man Sun as soon as he took a photo. This looks like a death substitution talisman? When Jiang Xiaoche saw the photo, he was also shocked. This kid, how can he have this? The price of the death substitute talisman was well known in the industry. Moreover, such a life-saving item was something that some people couldn't even buy with money. Because the number of people who could create such a talisman was extremely limited. Right now, the number of death substitute talismans circulating outside was pitifully small. This death substitution talisman is not something an ordinary person can draw. Given classmate Wang Ling's family background, this old man speculated that this talisman was probably his family heirloom. I never thought that classmate Wang would actually use the death substitute talisman to compensate for the damage to the stadium on behalf of other students. What a silly child. He should know that he's already a high-class VIP of our corporation, so he doesn't have to waste this money, Jiang Xiaoche said with a frown. This is where the problem lies. Student Wang purposely left this death substitute talisman behind because he doesn't want to owe our company a favor. With the value of this death substitute talisman, Student Wang is worthy of being our VIP customer. This shows that Student Wang is a person who understands the ways of the world. At that moment, Old Man Sun sighed. Also, look at the photo the curator took. This death substitute talisman is clean and tidy, as good as new. It's as if it was newly drawn. The old man didn't say anything else. A super talisman like the death substitute talisman couldn't be easily drawn. Most of the time, the death substitute talisman was something that high-level almighties knew that they were approaching the end of their lifespans and were unable to break through. These death substitute talismans could then be passed on to their disciples and grand-disciples to save their lives at critical moments. Thus, the death substitute talisman was also known as an item of great limit, and was incomparably valuable. What shocked Old Man Sun was, Wang Ling was actually able to preserve his family heirloom as if it was newly drawn. This kind of love and cherishing made Old Man Sun even happier. As expected of the boy that his precious granddaughter Rong Rong had taken a fancy to, he was indeed extraordinary. Chapter 1351. Lu Qingyi left the stadium as if she was fleeing. She had never expected things to turn out like this. The sweet and sour carp plan had failed. And she had lost so much face in front of Wang Zhen. The woman felt utterly ashamed and resentful. After leaving the stadium, she immediately sped toward the seaside on her flying sword. Lu Qingyi now felt that she needed to find a place to calm down. Earth wasn't the domain of the gods and there was no spirit sea. The coast of Songhai City could barely be considered a makeshift place. Wang Zhen was worried sick, and hurriedly took out his spirit sword to follow Lu Qingyi's aura. He flew so fast that he attracted the attention of the traffic police patrolling in the air. "Comrade in front, please stop, you're exceeding the speed limit." The police uncle also followed closely behind Wang Zhen on his sword. But Wang Zhen was really too fast, he couldn't track him at all. In the end, he could only take a photo of Wang Zhen and use big data to search for information. After finding out that Wang Zhen was a number 60 middle school student, the police uncle had a puzzled expression on his face. Could a Foundation establishment cultivator be this fast with a sword nowadays? It was too dangerous. But considering that Wang Zhen was a student, the traffic police didn't issue him a huge fine in the end, and instead issued number 60 High a warning letter. When number 60 High resumed school next Monday, criticism and education for Wang Zhen would definitely be unavoidable. Lu Qingyi arrived at the seaside. Before she could calm down, a familiar voice came from far behind her. "Qingyi." It was Wang Zhen's voice. Was this guy here to laugh at her? Lu Qingyi bit her lip and immediately prepared to enter the sea. As an opponent, the woman didn't want Wang Zhen to laugh at her. From a distance, Wang Zhen looked at Lu Qingyi's posture as she prepared to enter the sea, and all his hair stood on end nervously. "Qingyi, don't." He didn't have time to think at all and sped up. In the end, when he arrived, Wang Zhen discovered a very serious problem. He couldn't stop. Then, bang! There was a muffled sound. Lu Qingyi felt a figure smash into her spine at a very fast speed. It actually directly rolled her into a ball, and then started to roll forward at a very fast speed. Bayu, because Wang Zhen had cut in at a tricky angle, after he and Lu Qingyi crashed into each other, the two of them directly skipped on the surface of the sea. After who knew how many ripples, they finally sank into the sea with a plop. After emerging from the water, Wang Zhen carried Lu Qingyi back to the shore in a princess carry. Wang Zhen put Lu Qingyi down and she felt a sharp pain in her back. Slow down. I'm sorry, does it hurt? Wang Zhen was in pain. You idiot. He's so impatient. Lu Qingyi wanted to rebuke him, but when she saw Wang Zhen's worried expression, her voice gradually faded away. I thought you wanted to commit suicide. Wang Zhen rubbed the back of his head with an embarrassed expression on his face. Who would commit suicide for something like this? Besides, this isn't the divine sea. Can the seawater on earth drown us cultivators from the domain of the gods? Lu Qingyi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What do you mean by that? Isn't Gu Xuanji your boyfriend? He's two-timing and hurt you. Wang Zhen's face was filled with rage. Don't worry, when I get back, I'll definitely beat him up. Beat him up? He's a keeper of order, and you're going to beat him up with your head? Lu Qingyi didn't directly expose the truth. Seeing Wang Zhen's interesting reaction, she almost subconsciously followed up on his words. Then I'll go beg Ling Jinren. There's always a way to deal with scumbags. Even if I have to kneel down in front of Ling Jinren, I want him to help me. Wang Zhen said with a serious expression. It was said that a man's knees were gold. Given Wang Zhen's temper before he had been trapped on Earth, there was no way he would kneel to anyone. Now Wang Zhen's temper had indeed changed a lot, and he had become more modest. Besides, the person kneeling was Ling Jinren, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Are you worried about me? She thought Wang Zhen had come to laugh at her, but never thought that this idiot would actually be worried about her. I just can't stand it. Cheating on two boats. Why aren't you angry at all? Wang Zhen said stubbornly. Because I was the one who invited Gu Xuanji to act in the first place. Lu Qingyi finally revealed the truth. Actually, those words and that slap weren't my intention. At the time, it felt like I was a little out of control, like I was possessed. So the reason you ran away was, idiot. I thought you chased me out to laugh at me, said Lu Qingyi. She reached out to wrap her arms around Wang Zhen's neck and pull his face down a little. At that moment, his clothes were already soaked in seawater and he was covered in sand. For a moment, it was a charming scene. Even with the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, Wang Zhen could still clearly hear his own heartbeat. The throbbing of his heart like a monkey and a galloping horse left both of them absent-minded. Then Wang Zhen cupped Lu Qingyi's cheeks and kissed her fiercely. Nothing needed to be said, in the distance. Looking at this scene, Gu Xuanji felt that the situation was hopeless. These two people were together, then he might also cease to exist. Gu Xuanji was even prepared for the worst-case scenario of him disappearing. But the strange thing was, his body actually hadn't disappeared. Gu Xuanji was sure that he hadn't mistaken his mother for someone else. The Lu Qingyi in front of him was definitely his real mother, so, what was going on now? Gu Xuanji frowned. There was probably no one who could give him an answer now. It was Ling Jinren. Wang Zhen took Lu Qingyi to the hospital. He confirmed that the impact just now hadn't affected Lu Qingyi at all. Then they returned to the staff apartment. In the elevator, their fingers were tightly intertwined. I told you it would be fine. This bit of impact can't hurt me. Lu Qingyi said, see, the money was wasted, wasn't it? Arte. I'm not that petty. In any case, there's no harm in checking. At least I know that your body can withstand an impact. Wang Zhen smiled and whispered in her ear, maybe the impact will be even more violent in the future. You're an adult, don't be serious. Lu Qingyi blushed. After all, Wang Zhen had already been given a speeding ticket today. Ding. At that moment, the elevator doors slowly opened, and Lu Qingyi saw a lot of employees in Huagua Water Curtain Group's uniforms moving things into the house under the direction of an old auntie. Did you buy something online? Wang Zhen was puzzled. No, I didn't buy it. Lu Qingyi shook her head. At that moment, the old auntie in charge of the scene came over and bowed to Lu Qingyi with a smile. Hello, Miss Lu, I'm Chiu Shuyun, the head maid under eldest Miss Lotus Sunday. Everyone calls me Auntie Chiu. Hello, Auntie Chiu. Lu Qingyi nodded. So, what's going on now? This is a master-disciple gift that Miss Lotus Sun asked us to deliver, Auntie Chiu said with a smile. Master-disciple gift. Lu Qingyi was startled. Miss Lotus Sun already knew everything over the phone. She also said that Shifu Lu is very scheming, and that she has a lot to learn from. From now on, our young lady's happiness will depend on Shifu Lu. Chapter 1352. Wang Ling had expected Gu Xuanji to come and beg him. After all, if a person didn't have no other choice, there was no way he would agree to be his mother's fake boyfriend. Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi were in love, and Wang Ling calculated their relationship lines. This was a happy ending. That was to say, there was no possibility of them breaking up later on. Given this premise, there was a big question as to why Gu Xuanji could continue to exist. He was someone who had transmigrated from the future, and his initial goal had been to stop Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi's relationship, but things had turned out contrary to his wishes. I actually didn't expect them to progress so quickly. After all, there's still some time before my dad comes back from his trip to the galaxy. My parents got to know each other after my father returned from his trip to the galaxy. In Wang Ling's bedroom, Gu Xuanji sat on his knees in front of him and sighed. Jinren, I can only rely on you now. Also, I suspect that someone put a curse on me when my mom slapped me today. If it's convenient for you, Jinren, could you also help investigate this? Wang Ling looked a little hesitant. After all, he was the culprit behind the whole thing. His initial goal had just been to test out Single's curse and give it a good job. He hadn't expected things to get out of hand. Furthermore, the memory loss restriction hadn't been activated. This was probably because Gu Xuanji and Lu Qingyi weren't a real couple. Wang Ling's original purpose for setting up the memory loss mechanism was to prevent couples from separating. But now, not only had Lu Qingyi and Wang Zhen not separated because of Single's curse, they were together. Thus, the memory loss mechanism hadn't worked as it should. Seeing Wang Ling's hesitant expression, Gu Xuanji thought that he had made too many demands, which had made Wang Ling unhappy. Thus, he hurriedly corrected himself. My matter is more important. Ling Jinren, if you think it's too troublesome to investigate the person who put the curse on you, I can investigate it myself. I'll definitely make that person come out and apologize in person. Wang Ling didn't doubt Gu Xuanji's investigative abilities as a keeper of order. But he had to get to the bottom of this matter as soon as possible. Fortunately, he was prepared. While Gu Xuanji was speaking, a branch quietly stuck out from the toilet in Wang Ling's bedroom. Pa! A heavy blow landed on the back of Gu Xuanji's head. I didn't let you down. The physical amnesia technique is a success. This was a tree branch that could speak. After confirming that Gu Shun had fainted, it let out a bell-like laughter. Wang Ling had already anticipated that Gu Xuanji would come, so he had permanently strengthened a branch of the cosmic god tree for the physical amnesia spell. Why was it permanent? Wang Ling felt that he might miss you in the future. The physical amnesia spell was very simple and Wang Ling could do it himself. It was just that he couldn't be precise and attacking the head might send it flying. The reason why they had set their sights on the cosmic god tree was also because, working with Lord Ma, the cosmic god tree could now extend its branches wherever it wanted. This way it would be much easier for him to use the physical amnesia spell. As long as he summoned the cosmic god tree in his mind, a strengthened branch would instantly appear on the back of the target's head and whip it. Most importantly, Miss Yu's control over her strength was outstanding. Not only would there not be any sequelae after being drained, but there would also be no repercussions. The psionic energy of the divine tree on the branches could even seep into the cerebral cortex, making those who had been sucked feel refreshed after they woke up. Roughly 10 seconds later, Gu Xuanji woke up. His complexion was clearly much better than before he had arrived at the Wang family's small villa. Gu Xuanji had no idea what had just happened. It was as if he was just in a daze. After his consciousness returned, he saw Wang Ling earnestly helping him sort out the timeline. Ling Jinren is such a good person. Gu Xuanji sighed in his heart. Wang Ling, according to the clues provided by Gu Xuanji, his father, Gu Qing, had only met Lu Qingyi after returning from a trip. Their relationship quickly warmed up and soon they gave birth to him. The matter of Gu Qing coming to the Divine Realm's Lu family to propose marriage was also recorded in the Divine Realm's history. After the two families united by marriage, the Lu family's position among the 10 great families of the God domain could be said to have taken a meteoric rise. Very quickly, the Lu family rushed to the 3rd place, making a fool out of the Zhou family who was originally ranked 3rd. In order to prove that what he said was true, Gu Xuanji also produced a lot of photographic evidence. The alluring woman in the photo was, without a doubt, Lu Qingyi herself. After the two of them got married that day, rumor had it that Wang Zhen was disheartened and never returned to the Divine Realm again. At first glance, this seemed to be the case, but Wang Ling felt that there might be more to it than meets the eye. My lord, I have something to say. At that moment, Book of Sage Immortal's voice rang out. Wang Ling had casually stuffed Book of Sage Immortal into Lord Ma's mouth last time, and it looked like he had already reflected on his actions. But death could be spared, but punishment couldn't be forgiven. Wang Ling had never given up on giving Book of Sage Immortal away. Is this Lord Holy Book? Gu Xuanji turned his head and bowed. Based on the timeline, I already have a reasonable answer, said Book of Sage Immortal. He planned to speak out his reasoning in exchange for a chance to atone for his crimes. Lord Holy Book already has an answer? Gu Xuanji was startled. That's right. Book of Sage Immortal said, everyone thought that Wang Zhen was disheartened after losing Lu Qingyi, so he left the divine realm of the gods and never came back. In that case, is there another possibility that Wang Zhen and the real Miss Lu eloped? The real Miss Lu? The corners of Gu Xuanji's mouth twitched in shock. After all that trouble, it turned out that his mother was a fake? Impossible. I definitely didn't mistake my mother for someone else. Gu Xuanji retorted. I used my tracking privilege as a keeper of order to secretly mark my mother's soul with a soul imprint, and then tracked her here. There's no way I was wrong. Indeed, you weren't wrong. But you also have to remember that if the target you marked is an object produced by the original body, then when you track it, the mark will fall back on the original body before the target is produced. Although Book of Sage Immortal's words were very hard to pronounce, Gu Xuanji already seemed to understand what was going on. Lord Holy Book means, from the very beginning, the one your father liked was Miss Lu's shadow. And your mother is also Miss Lu's shadow. It's just that at this time Miss Lu's shadow hasn't awakened yet. So the mark you made in the future will ultimately fall back on Miss Lu's original body. So that's how it is. Gu Xuanji was lost in thought. This deduction is correct 78% of the time. After saying this, Book of Sage Immortal sighed. If it wasn't for the fact that my lord is a single dog, which affects some of my judgment on emotions, the accuracy would be even higher. Wang Ling? Wang Ling? Chapter 1353. Gu Xuanji hadn't expected the truth to be like this. It turned out that he was the child of Lu Qingyi's shadow. Gu Xuanji's mood immediately became complicated when he heard this result. Even if the shadow had awakened spiritual intelligence, it was still a manifestation of the original body. Since this was the case, Lu Qingyi's shadow could in fact also be called Lu Qingyi's daughter. Because of this, the relationship between him and Lu Qingyi's original body seemed to become even more complicated. Before this, Gu Xuanji had always regarded Lu Qingyi's original body as mom. But in fact, he should be calling her grandma? You look like you're in a complicated mood. At that moment, Book of Sage Immortal said, but it's not incomprehensible. After all, your mother has suddenly become your grandma, there's bound to be a sense of difference. You should be more open-minded. having an old person at home is like having a treasure. Gu Xuanji, Wang Ling. When Gu Xuanji returned to the staff apartment that day, he had just arrived at the door when he found Lu Qingyi holding Wang Zhen's arm as they chatted and laughed as they waited at the elevator door. The two of them dressed lightly and looked like they were about to go out as they interacted intimately. Gu Xuanji wanted to say something but stopped himself. It was mainly because he was hesitating between calling her grandma and mom, and didn't know which was better. Yeah, I know, brother Gu. Don't be sad. At that moment, Wang Zhen looked up at Gu Xuanji and patted him on the shoulder sympathetically. Although Gu Xuanji was a keeper of order, he usually lived together in Wang Zhen's house and didn't put on any airs, so Wang Zhen and Gu Xuanji also called each other brother. Now, Gu Xuanji's mood became even more complicated as he stared at the grandfather, who called him brother. What do you know? Qingyi said that you have a serious Oedipus complex, said Wang Zhen. Don't worry, since I'm with Qingyi, I'll definitely keep my mouth shut about this. I won't tell anyone else. Wang Zhen said, keepers of order are under a lot of pressure, so it's normal for them to have some quirks. I heard my dad talk about even stranger cases before. There was a keeper of order who had been single for a long time, so his shadow was pretty. He actually had desires for a woman's shadow. Gu Xuanji didn't want to continue discussing this topic and quickly changed the topic. Where are you going now? It's like this, Qingyi and I have discussed it and we've decided to look at some houses and move out. Are you rich now? Qingyi is now Miss Lotus Sun's Shifu. Miss Sun said that as long as it's a property under Huagua Water Curtain Group, you can just tell her if you like any property. Then? I wish you happiness, Gu Xuanji said. Then he walked to his bedroom without looking back. Logically speaking, he shouldn't be feeling so down. Since he knew that his mother wasn't Lu Qingyi herself, he should be happy. However, too many things had happened today and the amount of information was too much. For a moment, Gu Xuanji felt like he had indigestion. What happened to him? Wang Zhen was a little puzzled by Gu Xuanji's reaction. In any case, the three of us are from the domain of the gods. If we leave just like that, wouldn't it be bad to leave him here? Lu Qingyi said worriedly. You're right. Then we can just find him a roommate, Wang Zhen said. You mean Zhao Qingxian? In any case, we've already moved out and are together, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Wang Zhen suddenly hugged Lu Qingyi like a giant wolf dog. This fatty has never been a law-abiding person in the domain of the gods. In any case, old Gu is a keeper of order. I believe Zhao Qingxian won't act too rashly under the watchful eyes of a keeper of order. You're right. Lu Qingyi nodded. Also, I remember that the Zhao family also runs a beast shop in the domain of the gods. He can also help Wei Ji. At the very least, he's much better than us two idiots. Wang Zhen laughed. Where's Zhao Qingxian now? I asked around before. He's suspicious because he's an unregistered resident. He's still in the detention center. I'll call Rongrong later and have her arrange for someone to get Zhao Qingxian here. What do you want to eat tonight? Western or Chinese? Wang Zhen asked. Either is fine. Lu Qingyi smiled. Then, barbecue? That's too oily. Is there anything else? Hot pot. Hot pot is so boring, it's all sauce. Then what do you think? Either is fine. Thursday, December 3rd. It was the day Lotus Sun was officially discharged from the hospital. At her request, the old man chose to keep a low profile. He didn't make a big deal out of it, nor did he find a bunch of reporters to hold a press conference or something like that. After experiencing this incident, old man Sun truly felt that his precious granddaughter seemed to have matured a lot. She had become more prudent in doing things. It's said that classmate Wang Ling likes to keep a low profile. I'm afraid that Rongrong has also been influenced by him. In the car, old man Sun was actually very pleased. Everyone had been young once. Under the basic conditions of being in love, one's behavior would also lean toward the person they liked, and then some changes would occur. For example, if a person who wasn't good at academics fell in love with a straight-A student, then perhaps they would put a lot more effort into their studies. Doing your best to keep in step with the person you liked was also part of being in love. Hence, old man Sun was very clear about his own position in Lotus Sun's pursuit of Wang Ling. He could only be a long-range support and couldn't interfere too much. Furthermore, he couldn't use his own company's wealth and power to disrupt classmate Wang Ling's life. Not only would this cause trouble for Wang Ling, it would also thwart his precious granddaughter's plans. Rongrong, you can do it. Old man Sun couldn't help cheering in his heart as he watched the girl walk into the villa. Old master, where are we going now? To Battle Sect. I have an appointment with Director Zhua. Okay. The driver nodded and quickly stepped on the gas. Back in her bedroom, Lotus Sun saw that the furniture that had been burned down by the great sacrificial spell had been restored, and were all newly bought, just as they had been before she left. Knowing that Lotus Sun was being discharged today, Auntie Chio had ordered the exact same furniture in advance, and had someone install it overnight. Thank you, Auntie Chio. Lotus Sun smiled politely at Auntie Chio. Miss, you're too kind. This is something this old one should do. I have other things to do. If Miss needs anything else, just give me a call. Okay. Lotus Sun nodded. She saw Auntie Chio respectfully withdraw and close the door. She couldn't wait to turn on her computer. There were too many things recorded in the cloud disk. The girl had only seen less than 10% of them in the hospital. And now, those when she was in her soul state. Bits and pieces of memories that she had personally recorded in her little notebook. In an instant, all of them had been released. Chapter 1354. Lotus Sun connected her laptop to the printer and printed out all the sketches she had drawn. They were of Wang Ling's face from various angles, and in just a few minutes her desk was covered with them. I actually drew so many sketches of classmate Wang Ling. The girl blushed and shyly buried her face in the pile of paper. Although they were all sketches of Wang Ling, none of them were complete. This was because Lotus Sun had learned about the great shielding spell from Ajwa in the Buddha Golden Lotus. Once the protective mechanism was activated, her sketches would turn into a pile of mosaics. So in order to prevent this from happening, Lotus Sun hadn't finished the sketches. Classmate Wang Ling with ellipses on his face was also very cute. The girl flipped through the portraits and saw a few sketches that she had highlighted. She remembered now. She had drawn them on Palm Cliff Heaven Puppet. In addition to the pictures, there were also some words she had written. Today, a groundhog brought me to Earth 1 second later, but I didn't feel the slightest bit afraid. Because I believed that classmate Wang Ling would definitely come to save me. Don't be afraid, I'm coming, classmate Wang Ling. The message you left for me in the shadow may be 2 sentences I will never forget. Then you broke free of all the shadows and appeared in my world like light. What I wrote is too mushy. The girl blushed as she finished reading the words in the pictures. She couldn't believe that she had actually written something like this. She couldn't bear to read any more, but curiosity kept driving her to flip through the messages left behind. Senior Ajwa, he actually called me Master's wife. It was a picture of her returning to Battle Sect after Wang Ling had rescued her from the groundhog. Like a weeping beauty, Ajwa had thrown himself at her and loudly called her Master's wife, in front of everyone. This incredible scene appeared in her mind as her memories kept coming back to her. In a split second, 2 streams of hot steam gushed out of her ears. I have to cool you down. Otherwise it will be dangerous. Sun Yinger appeared and obediently sat on the edge of the soft bed, swinging her slender legs. Release steam from your ears. This was the effect of the cooling spell, and Sun Yinger would perform it on his behalf depending on the situation. Lower the temperature. Your temperature is too high now. A girl in love has to keep a cool head at all times in order to win in the end, right? Sun Yinger giggled. That stinky Wang Ying wants me to protect you. So sometimes some necessary measures will be taken. You're still protecting me? Aren't you always being bullied by Wang Ying? Lotus Sun also laughed. Bully? No way. I will definitely turn over and become the master and fight with him to the end, Sun Yinger said resolutely. But as she said this, she suddenly felt that her body was indeed a little uncomfortable. It was all because Wang Ying's planet-knocking art was too powerful yesterday. You don't feel well? Do you need me to give you a massage? Great. Rongrong is the best. Mua. Sun Yinger rushed over and kissed Lotus Sun on the cheek. It's all this Death King's shadow's fault. 406 times. Finished in one night. My back hurts from the collision. Lotus Sun, Sun Yinger, hey. Rongrong. Why is your face red again? Eat my cooling spell. Elsewhere in Battle Sect, Old Man Sun and Ajwa had arranged to meet in the true venerated Great Hall. After exchanging greetings, they took their seats. A Battle Sect disciple came over to serve them tea. After the tea was served, the disciple tactfully withdrew and closed the door. He made sure that no one would disturb them in the Great Hall. Director Zhua, I'm here today for one thing only. I'm a straightforward person and I don't beat around the bush, so I hope that you can be honest with me. Old Man Sun smiled. As for the benefits, I'm sure you'll get them as well. I know that the Alliance of 10,000 Schools is about to elect a new leader. If you don't hide anything from me, I'll do my best to garner votes for you. Ajwa smiled. Mr. Sun, you're exaggerating. Sugar-coated bullets don't work on me. I want to hear your question first. If it involves a friend's secret, I naturally won't say a word. As expected, Director Zhua is a loyal man. Old Man Sun nodded. What he had said just now was just a test, and Ajwa indeed hadn't disappointed him. Actually, whether or not he got the answer he wanted from Ajwa, Old Man Sun would still help him in canvassing for votes. He knew that Ajwa had also put in a lot of effort behind the scenes in Lotus Sun's matter this time. There was no way he, Sunny Yuan, would not return this favor. Don't worry, Director Zhua. What I want to discuss this time isn't your friend's secret. It's Director Zhua's own secret. Old Man Sun smiled. Ajwa's expression froze slightly at these words. His secret was none other than his relationship with Wang Ling. Could it be that he had already been exposed? That shouldn't be the case. Ajwa frowned. So, Mr. Sun, what do you want to ask? In such a short period of time, Director Zhua was able to rise to the position of Director of the General Administration of 10,000 schools and repeatedly perform miraculous feats. He is deeply favored by Secretary Sun of the Alliance of 10,000 Schools. In fact, I'm here this time to find out more about student Wang Ling, Old Man Sun. So, I need to confirm whether the relationship between Director Zhua and student Wang Ling isn't as simple as it seems on the surface. Ajwa's expression darkened. Student Wang Ling and I are just a normal senior and junior brother. The same as student Lotus Sunday, not necessarily Director Zhua. At that moment, Old Man Sun chuckled. Since I'm here today, I'm definitely prepared. I never fight when I'm unprepared. I'm certain that Director Zhua and student Wang Ling's relationship isn't as simple as it seems. Ajwa, where on earth did you get this information, Mr. Sun? It's just the result of a precise analysis of the information I've gathered. Hearing this, Old Man Sun chuckled. So, Director Zhua, just admit it. Ajwa feigned ignorance. Admit what? Old Man Sun, you? Student Wang Ling's Shifu. Am I right? Ajwa. P.S. I've seen your reaction regarding the issue of blocking the Immortal King web version. This is actually an anti-piracy measure. If you want to be the first to see updates, you can only do so through the Chidian reading app. I know that there are a lot of Immortal King chapters and some of you can't afford to read pirated versions. I hope you don't publicize it and can just read it secretly. But if you've caught up with the latest chapters, I hope you can come to the original version and spend a few cents a day to support Pai Pai Ku's creation. The more readers there are of the original version, the better the motivation to create. Chapter 1355. Ajwa felt that this might be the biggest scapegoat he had ever carried in his life. It could only be said that Old Man Sun was in the end Old Man Sunday. This ability to avoid the right answer. It turned out that you were the legendary, ultimate Maori Little Wulong. At least there were times when Little Wulong got it right, but Ajwa realized that the amazing thing about Old Man Sun was that he always seemed to be able to perfectly avoid all the right answers. Who would have thought that I would still be found out? At that moment, Ajwa rested his chin on his fingers and leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, pretending to be deep in thought. Now that things had come to this, he couldn't deny it. Although this was a huge scapegoat, now that things had come to this, he could only accept it. In the end, Director Zhou admitted it. Old Man Sun looked like he had everything under control. He was absolutely confident that he would be able to make Ajwa admit to this matter, mainly because he had enough evidence on hand. How did Mr. Sun find out about this? Ajwa was very curious about this. You and classmate Wang have known each other for a long time, perhaps even before number 60 High's first Spirit Sword Exchange meet. As for what happened that day at the Spirit Sword Exchange meet, I specifically asked Rongrong about it. Old Man Sun began to make a brilliant deduction. Rongrong said that in your solo Spirit Sword performance, you chose classmate Wang's Peachwood Sword at first glance. This was actually a subconscious action, which means that the relationship between the two of you is no trivial matter. Ajwa, is there any other evidence? Of course there is. Old Man Sun nodded. Director Zhou defeated the Demon King Sky-Swallowing Toad back then, and now that Toad has turned into a dog. There are so many students at number 60 High, so why did this dog stay at classmate Wang Ling's house? It's obvious that this is your greeting gift to classmate Wang Ling. It's true that this Toad is a Demon King, but you were the one who defeated it back then, so it definitely listens to everything you say. By putting it at classmate Wang Ling's house, you're actually protecting him. Old Man Sun laughed. This kind of master's concern for his disciple is a little too obvious. Hearing this, the corners of Ojwa's mouth twitched. Mr. Sun is really smart and brave. Of course, there's also the decisive evidence, which is Director Zhuo's close visit to classmate Wang Ling's house. Mr. Sun is following me? Ojwa frowned. It can't be considered tracking. It's just some technical methods. Old Man Sun said lightly, the metal pin to Director Zhuo's chest actually has a tracking function. In the past, your badge location has frequently appeared at classmate Wang Ling's house. I'm afraid this has already surpassed the relationship between a senior and a junior, right? Hearing this, Ojwa already couldn't help applauding. As expected of Mr. Sun, your reasoning ability leaves me in the dust. It's just some insignificant tricks. I was able to sit in this position because of my extraordinary reasoning ability. Old Man Sun couldn't help but sigh when he said that. In the past he was dealing in elixirs. Now he was dealing in stocks. Elixirs were considered a physical industry, and now there were fully automated production machines. Other than rare elixirs, most elixirs could be produced automatically by machines, and there was not much manual skill involved. Over time, Sunny Yuan started to learn how to analyze stocks. The stock market was still the most exciting. Thanks to his logical analysis, Huagua Water Curtain Group had made a lot of money in the last few years. Director Zhuo, if you're interested, you can listen to my stock lessons. Of course, these are top secret lessons for the group. Old Man Sun knows about stocks. It's just some insignificant analysis, and it's Jiang Xiaoche who's in charge. It's my secretary whom Director Zhuo met earlier. Ojwa, although he didn't dare be 100% sure. He could roughly guess that this Jiang Xiaoche had most likely done the opposite of what Old Man Sun had said. Ojwa couldn't help sighing in his heart. It really wasn't easy for Huagua Water Curtain Group to grow to such a scale. He smiled bitterly. Mr. Sun came to confirm your identity with me today to ask about my disciple. Ojwa braced himself as he said this. At the same time he moaned and cried out in his heart, hoping that Wang Ling wouldn't blame him. Shifu, disciple really didn't mean to take advantage of you. Even your father-in-law came to investigate. Disciple has to take the blame. Sunny Yuan was delighted to hear this. He had long known that Ojwa was a sensible person. It was also for this reason that he was deeply liked by Secretary Sunday. In fact, Sunny Yuan felt that even if he didn't help Ojwa pull in votes, he would sooner or later be able to sit at the top of the alliance on his own. I knew that Director Zhuo was a smart man. Old Man Sun was overjoyed. What this old man wanted to ask isn't anything important. I just wanted to ask about classmate Wang Ling's hobbies. Or his family's hobbies. Crispy noodle snacks, said Ojwa. What? Sunny Yuan thought he had heard wrong. It's a small snack, so that's how it is. Old Man Sun sighed. No wonder when classmate Wang went to the hospital to see how my family's Rongrong was doing, he didn't even look at the high-end snacks I had people prepare. Ojwa smiled. But ordinary crispy noodle snacks are already very difficult to catch my disciple's eye. That's easy, I can find someone to order them. I'll hire the best noodle chef in the world to make them on the spot. Mr. Sun is really generous, but if you really do this, my disciple might be disgusted. I know. Old Man Sun said, classmate Wang likes to keep a low profile. I'll have a noodle chef appear next to him without anyone noticing. Ojwa, Sunny Yuan, then what do classmate Wang's parents like? Ojwa, my disciple's father is an online entrepreneur. I know that. Monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Tips. Old Man Sun was excited. What's his pen name? I can arrange it for him right now. His pen name is Wang Situ. So he's Wang Situ. Old Man Sun was startled. Given his relationship with the head of state, he naturally knew that the latter had been chasing after the writings of someone called Wang Situ. It was just that Sunny Yuan had never expected the world to be so small. This Wang Situ was actually classmate Wang Ling's father. Chapter 1356. Ojwa hadn't expected Old Man Sun to be so concerned about his Shifu. However, after the conversation he felt that there was no need to be too wary of Sunny Yuan. Old Man Sun was indeed a deductive genius, but he was also someone who knew how to take care of other people's feelings. It was precisely because he knew his master's low-key personality that he had specially arranged for a time to ask him about the situation. Otherwise, with Old Man Sun's temper, he would have visited his in-laws with many bags. Strategy was a long-term plan. Feelings needed to be nurtured slowly. Old Man Sun understood this principle. The more he wished for his precious granddaughter to be able to truly obtain happiness, the more he wished for her. The more one couldn't use money and sugar-coated bullets to try to buy other people's feelings. This was an impolite behavior, and it was also a kind of disrespect to others. Thank you, Director Zhua. My trip today wasn't in vain. I understand everything now. Before he left, Old Man Sun bowed respectfully to Zhua. Director Zhua, please rest assured about what happened today. Heaven and earth will know. I'll keep everything to myself. Mr. Sun, you're too polite. Zhua smiled and returned the salute with cupped fists. Old Man Sun laughed out loud and shouted, "Immortal luck prospers." Then he flicked his sleeves and left. Looking at Old Man Sun's retreating back, Zhua heaved a long sigh of relief. Are you sure Brother Ling won't be angry? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal walked out of the office. He had been eavesdropping on the side for a long time. As long as we have crispy noodle snacks, everything is negotiable. Mr. Sun is a smart man, he should have some tricks up his sleeve. Zhua rubbed his chin. In fact, he didn't dare to guarantee what would happen next. Elsewhere, Songhai First Military Medical Hospital. After being locked up for several days, Lotus Sun arranged for Zhao Qingxian to be bailed out and admitted to the hospital for a checkup. Earth was too dangerous. He had only just arrived here and had not done anything, yet he was already accused of forcibly molesting a male. How tragic could it be? Mr. Zhao, because we haven't been able to find your identity information so far, you are still under our strict surveillance. Before the bed, a police officer said with a solemn expression, after all the checks are done, you will be restricted to our specific apartment. You will be supervised by a special supervisor. Zhao Qingxian, then when can I get rid of the suspicion? That's hard to say. The police officer spread his hands and stared at Zhao Qingxian. Behave yourself. A doctor will come over later to examine your body. He wasn't worried that Zhao Qingxian would run away because Zhao Qingxian had the spirit shackles on his ankles. With most of his spiritual power restricted, Zhao Qingxian had nowhere to go. Helpless, Zhao Qingxian could only lie down obediently. As soon as the police officer left, Zhao Qingxian saw a seriously ill patient covered in bandages being pushed to the bed next to him by a female nurse. This person was none other than Fan Xing. After several surgeries by the hospital, Fan Xing's recovery was relatively good, but there was still a long time before he could fully recover. Of course, even if Fan Xing made a full recovery afterwards, Fan Xing was destined to have no happiness in his life. Brother? Bro. Zhao Qingxian tried to talk to Fan Xing. It wasn't because he was bored, but because he felt that he had found an opportunity from Fan Xing. Now he was being inexplicably monitored by the police and had even been charged with a groundless crime. With such a serious crime on him, his plans on Earth would be greatly hindered. In addition, the spirit shackles on his ankles suppressed most of his spiritual power. It definitely wouldn't be easy for him to escape. But in any case, he was a domain of the gods cultivator. Even with the two anklet versions of the spirit shackles, it was still possible to cast some small spells. Now, Fan Xing's body was ravaged and he was delirious, but this gave Zhao Qingxian a sliver of an opportunity. So, I can only try. Temporary soul-switching technique. Zhao Qingxian suddenly had a plan in his mind. The spell was actually a simplified version of the possession spell. When cast on a delirious person, the success rate would be greatly increased. Once it was cast successfully, the soul exchange effect would be realized within 72 hours. So, it didn't matter even if the person wasn't satisfied with the body. After 72 hours, the body would be swapped back. This was a simple body-swapping game. Zhao Qingxian used a simple spell to determine that Fan Xing wasn't completely immobile. It was just that his depression was hindering his movements. As for the specific situation, he just had to wait for the soul exchange to be completed and personally appraise it. He still had some pills that could help Fan Xing recover from his injuries quickly. These were all life-saving items he had brought from the domain of the gods, and their effects couldn't be compared to those on Earth. This wasn't the first time he had thought of leaving this fat body. Zhao Qingxian had ingested a lot of sugar since he was young because of the half-moon robe Shingongli. This caused Zhao Qingxian's body to expand abnormally, to the point where he couldn't control or restrain himself anymore. The rules in the domain of the gods were strict, and Zhao Qingxian had never dared think of possessing someone. Now, on Earth he had found an opportunity. Moreover, Fan Xing's facial features were fine. If he used this face to seduce Lu Qingyi, Zhao Qingxian felt that not only could he hide his identity, but he could also greatly increase his chances of success. Bro. I'm sorry. Zhao Qingxian thought about it. In the end he finally made up his mind to make a move on Fan Xing. Fan Xing saw Zhao Qingxian reach out to him. His first reaction was naturally to struggle. But it was already too late. In an instant, a dazzling light burst out from the top of their heads. The soul exchange was complete. Fan Xing's soul returned to Zhao Qingxian's body, but his hand was still on Fan Xing's body. The young police officer turned pale with fright when he entered and hurriedly pulled Zhao Qingxian away. "You pervert. I knew you wouldn't even let a man off." Fan Xing, who had been swapped into Zhao Qingxian's body, felt very wronged. He couldn't speak at all because Zhao Qingxian had cast a silence spell on him before the soul exchange, so Fan Xing couldn't speak for a while. Success. Zhao Qingxian had successfully seized Fan Xing's body. But after a simple inspection, the smile on Zhao Qingxian's face gradually froze. F***ck. This man actually didn't have balls. He had suffered a loss this time. Chapter 1357. The reason why the Zhao family was able to establish a foothold in the divine realm and rank in the top 10 was because of this. In fact, it was also due to the various strange techniques that the Zhao family had mastered. To put it bluntly, it was because their imagination was too wild, resulting in the increase of all kinds of strange knowledge. Then, based on the foundation of the heavenly Tao, they developed some strange spells. Some of these spells were very strong, but some were also very weak. After many years of experimentation, the head of the Zhao family had naturally mastered countless strange spells. Although Zhao Qingxian was his legitimate son, he was ignorant and incompetent. However, because he was ignorant and incompetent, even though he had inherited many things from him, most of them were just second-rate weapons. At this moment, Zhao Qingxian, who had swapped his soul into Fan Xing's body, was slightly at a loss for what to do in front of him. Fan Xing's facial features were passable. But as a man, he lacked important equipment. It still wouldn't work. However, after the temporary soul-swapping spell was activated, it couldn't be used repeatedly. He had to wait for the spell to expire before his body would automatically switch back. However, Zhao Qingxian couldn't wait any longer. He pulled out the various infusion tubes in his body and picked up the storage ring on the ground. This ring had been deliberately thrown in the corner by Zhao Qingxian before he swapped bodies. Although he had swapped bodies, the soul in Fan Xing's body was still Zhao Qingxian. Therefore, opening the storage ring was simply a piece of cake. Zhao Qingxian took out a heavenly restoration pill that was worth 1 billion immortal gold bars. He sneered. "A mere miscellaneous cultivator from Earth, you've really lucked out." He threw the pill into his stomach, and a warm stream of spiritual power flowed out of his blood vessels, nourishing his whole body and repairing his damaged body. Zhao Qingxian could clearly feel that his body's condition was improving. This was a life-saving medicine that he had brought down from the divine realm. He had brought a total of 6 pills. As long as he wasn't instantly killed by a palm strike and was still breathing, this pill would be able to save his life. Although Fan Xing's physical condition was somewhat bad, with all the fractures and meridians in his body. Although they had all been reconnected to recover from such injuries, with the current level of spiritual medicine on Earth, even if he used the best medicinal herbs to nourish himself every day, without 2 years of recuperation, it was impossible to recover to the standard of a normal person. But now, a single medicinal pill from Zhao Qingxian had instantly healed his injuries. He was still absorbing the medicine, but Zhao Qingxian could already feel that he had regained his ability to move. Then he pulled up his pants to take a look, and there was still some disappointment on his face. "Even such a miraculous medicine can't regenerate my organs." However, Zhao Qingxian had mastered many strange techniques, so it was not completely impossible to repair it. "Looks like I have to make a deal with the river god." He thought of a secret technique. Although it was risky, it was worth a try. In any case, this body wasn't his right now. If it really didn't work, he could just wait for the time limit to run out and choose someone else to swap bodies with. Elsewhere, at the entrance of Lotus Sun's villa, a handsome monk was paying a visit by the huge fountain. Auntie Chiu, who was cleaning in front of the door, bowed very politely when faced with the monk who suddenly appeared. She smiled and said, "Master, if you are here to solicit alms, please follow me." As expected of Miss Lotus Sun's subordinate, Monk Jin Deng performed a Buddhist salute. He had always been polite to well-educated people. "Master, you know my young mistress? My Dharma name is Golden Lamp. Please inform her that I have something important to discuss with Miss Sunday." So it was the young mistress's friend. Chiu Shuyun marveled inwardly at her young mistress's wide circle of friends. "Please wait a moment, master." Auntie Chiu nodded. She immediately went to the door and raised the internal telephone to confirm the situation with Lotus Sunday. In less than half a minute, Auntie Chio had received a definite answer. She strolled over to the monk and invited him in. The monk was brought directly to Lotus Sun's room by Aunt Chio. Inside, the young girl was sitting on the sofa, and two maids were placing vegetarian pastries and tea on the coffee table. Their movements were swift, and it didn't take long for them to finish arranging everything for the reception. "Leave us. No one is allowed to come in until I call for you," Lotus Sun ordered. "Yes." The two maids bowed and then quickly retreated. When there were no outsiders in the room, the monk said, "Miss Sun is still as considerate and thoughtful as ever." Seeing that Miss Sun's complexion has returned to normal, this monk is also much more relieved. "Master, please sit down." Lotus Sun maintained a smile on her face. "I'm grateful for everything you've done for me, that I'm safe and sound this time, Master. I will definitely repay you in the future. What I've done is insignificant. If Miss Sun wants to thank someone, you should thank Ling Jinren." The monk smiled. "A monk doesn't ask for anything in return. I didn't come here this time to ask for a gift in return, Miss Sunday. May I ask what is it, Master?" Lotus Sun asked. "This humble monk came here this time to ask what kind of magic artifact Miss Sun wants." "Magic artifact? Miss Sun, have you forgotten? You're the champion of this year's Battle Sect face-shaping competition, and the first person to pinch Ling Jinren's face." As soon as the monk said this, two streams of steam whistled out of the young girl's ears like dragons. But very quickly, the young girl's rapidly rising temperature returned to normal under the effect of the spell. Sun Yinger emerged from the state of a shadow and turned into a real body. She suddenly appeared beside the girl and lay on the girl's knees with her limbs spread out. "Monk Jindang, I think you should just buy an electric fan for Rongrong. That way I won't have to use the cooling spell on her every day." Oh, don't be rude." Sun Yinger's blunt personality had always been a headache for Lotus Sunday. "You don't have to pay so much attention to etiquette in front of this humble monk." The monk smiled. He looked Sun Yinger up and down. If it weren't for the difference in hair color and personality, when the two of them sat side by side, the monk felt like he was looking at a pair of twins. "Miss Sun can have whatever kind of magic artifact you want. This humble monk can do most of them." At that moment, the monk glanced at her. "How about this? This humble monk can give Miss Sun a few directions." "Directions?" "Yes." The monk nodded. Magic artifacts can be classified into three types based on their functions: offensive magic artifacts, defensive magic artifacts, and auxiliary magic artifacts. This humble monk has just deduced that Miss Sun might need an auxiliary magic artifact. "What do you mean, Master?" Lotus Sun asked curiously. "Doesn't Miss Inger have low back pain? This humble monk can create a magic artifact to relieve it," the monk said. But Inger's low back pain was caused by Wang Ying's wall-tapping spell. Although this humble monk has blessed Miss Sun's body, that doesn't mean she can do whatever she wants. "What does that have to do with me?" the monk said seriously. "Then is Miss Sun so sure that she won't hurt in the future, Lotus Sun? Chapter 1358. Could only be said that monks were monks after all. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to understand the deeper meaning behind a monk's words. Lotus Sun felt that if even monks became more reserved these days, then no one else would be able to. "Miss Sun's face is actually so red." The monk felt that the girl might have thought of something strange. He could actually read minds, but he felt that he had to give the girl in front of him enough respect. It was impolite to casually read minds. But this also made it impossible for the monk to truly understand her thoughts when he faced her. He could only guess to solve the problem. What this monk means is that after this incident, Miss Sun will have to learn how to protect herself. In fact, the auxiliary magic tool I'm talking about isn't just for the waist, it can also be used on other parts of the body, the monk said. "From what I see, Rongrong doesn't seem to like it very much. Isn't the best protection from offense? Monk, why don't you upgrade Rongrong's spirit sword?" At this time, Sun Yinger suggested a new idea. "Upgrade the spirit sword?" The monk nodded. "That wasn't a bad choice. Monk, this is my sword." The next moment she opened her hand, and a beam of azure spirit light shot out from her palm. She summoned Mysterious Sea. After the battle on Nine Dragon Mountain, her Mysterious Sea group had suffered heavy losses. Although the group had already spent a lot of money on cloning, it would still take a long time for them to recover to the original 48 Mysterious Seas. Using the technique of cloning spirit swords to achieve a sword-spirit linkage with the main body, the monk saw through the secret hidden in Mysterious Sea at a glance. This could indeed greatly increase her battle strength, but at the same time, it would also put a huge burden on her body. Controlling so many spirit swords would greatly test the spirit energy and mental strength of the original owner. It was like a computer running multiple programs at the same time overheating. Over time, it might even cause irreversible damage to the body. Miss Sun, in the future, don't use clone swords to perform a sword-spirit linkage. This monk has a better way, the monk said. Although the girl's body had been blessed by him and using the sword-spirit linkage technique wouldn't endanger her life, the monk didn't want her to use such a painful method to increase her battle strength. Does the monk have a better suggestion? She asked curiously. I can modify the main body of Mysterious Sea and turn it into a giant sword-spirit container. I can have it continuously replicate and clone itself in the container. In this case, it will actually achieve the effect of a sword-spirit linkage. The monk said, in fact, I think this is the ultimate evolution. As long as the modification is successful, Miss Lotus Sun's Mysterious Sea will never be destroyed. She only needs to control a single sword to summon billions of Mysterious Seas to do battle. You can do that. Lotus Sun covered her mouth in surprise. She knew how powerful the monk was, so she had no doubt that he could do it. These Mysterious Seas, which are constantly being duplicated in the containers, can also be combined to increase their combat power. As long as there are enough copies and clones, theoretically, Miss Sun's combat strength will have the possibility of unlimited growth. The monk said with a smile, although Miss Sun is only at the Foundation establishment realm, as long as you have this sword, this penniless monk can't guarantee that you can defeat 99% of people on Earth. Then does the remaining 1% belong to Grandmaster and classmate Wang Ling? Lotus Sun smiled. They must have brought us along, but there might be other experts. Tyrant nodded and replied, but to upgrade the Mysterious Sea, I still need two more things. What is it? I need Missing to provide me with a law of splitting, the monk said. The idea of upgrading Mysterious Sea into a sword spirit super container was the monk's crazy idea based on Sun Yinger's Shadow Dao ability. However, this matter involved the secret of Sun Yinger's law. Tyrant thought that Sun Yinger wouldn't say it easily. In the end, the white-haired girl in front of him was much more straightforward than the monk had imagined. That's easy. Rongrong and I are one. Helping Rongrong is also helping me. Alright then. The monk nodded. As for the second item, it's the Heavenly Dao Magic Cube that I obtained when I, Ling Jinren, went to wipe out the unspeakable a while ago. Since Miss Inger has agreed to hand over the nomological patterns, then this matter is settled. But isn't that classmate Wang Ling's thing? Lotus Sun frowned. Wouldn't it be bad to ask for it like this? Ling Jinren won't refuse. The monk said confidently, the Heavenly Dao Magic Cube is certainly precious, but in Ling Jinren's eyes, it's actually worthless. At this point, Monk Jin Deng suddenly paused and turned to look at the girl. Compared with the Heavenly Dao Magic Cube, Ling Jinren actually knows very well that he has something more precious. What are you talking about, Great Master? Lotus Sun was a little embarrassed. Miss Sun, no need to be embarrassed. This poor monk thinks that Ling Jinren will have an epiphany sooner or later. You just need to be a little more patient. Aren't you a monk? Why do you look like you know so much? At that moment, Sun Yinger moved closer and couldn't help asking. Missing, you may not know, but this poor monk was once an emperor. I had a harem of 3,000 beauties, of course I know. Great Master was an emperor? Lotus Sun was stunned. I don't feel anything else, just that my back hurts. Elsewhere, Zhao Qingxian borrowed Fan Xing's body. He snatched a jar of specimens from the hospital's biological dissection room, then quickly left the hospital. His first task was, of course, to fix his own shortcomings. Zhao Qingxian found the river closest to Songhai First Military Medical Hospital, and as soon as he reached it, he couldn't wait to start casting a spell. He was ready to summon the Heavenly Dao River God. This was how cultivators in the domain of the gods generally conducted an equivalent exchange. Usually it was the Heavenly Dao River God who did this on their behalf. Not everyone had the right to meet the Heavenly Dao Little Golden Man directly for a fair and equivalent exchange. Actually, even though it was called an equivalent exchange, only the Heavenly Dao Little Golden Man could truly achieve it. Compared with the Heavenly Dao Golden Man, most cultivators in the domain of the gods actually couldn't get anything out of the Heavenly Dao River God. But now, Zhao Qingxian had no other choice. River God, please hear my call. In front of the river, Zhao Qingxian made a hand seal and muttered something. Whoosh! A slender figure soared into the sky from the calm surface of the river, following the sound. A handsome young man with phoenix eyes and long hair wearing a flower hairpin appeared in front of Zhao Qingxian. Droplets of water slid down the young man's well-proportioned muscles, giving off an intoxicating watery glow. His whole body surged with the supreme aura of heavenly Tao, and when he opened his mouth, Zhao Qingxian came back to his senses. Young Zhao Qingxian, did you throw this golden elephant egg or this silver elephant egg? An elephant? Zhao Qingxian was startled. Wasn't the specimen he had stolen a human's? Chapter 1359. Why was there an elephant specimen in the hospital? Zhao Qingxian's face darkened. In the next moment he began to struggle. At this time, if he did not choose anything, then both the golden and silver eggs would be his. However, the problem was that if these two things were hung below, how could he walk? Even if he could walk, it would be easy for him to get into trouble. For a moment, Zhao Qingxian was in a dilemma. Because if he chose to lie or choose not to accept anything, he would be severely punished by the river god. Therefore Zhao Qingxian sighed and could only tell the truth. Lord River God, these are not mine. My original intention was, you don't have to explain anymore. The handsome river god with phoenix eyes had already seen through Zhao Qingxian's heart. With a cold expression, he threw the golden and silver eggs in his hands into the river. Then he looked at Zhao Qingxian with the aura of a boss. Do you understand the rules? Tianyuan Guixing pill. Zhao Qingxian gritted his teeth and took out 2 pills without hesitation. This is my tribute to the river god. 2 pills for 2, huh? Hey, you know what's good for you. The river god raised his finger and swept the 2 pills away. According to the law of equivalent exchange, the parts you lose are actually irreversible. Therefore, when I return the things to you, another part of your body will disappear randomly. But don't worry, the parts that disappear will not affect your life. This? Zhao Qingxian did not expect that he would be in such a situation after losing 2 pills. He wanted to ask the river god to return the pills to him, but the river god's expression quickly turned cold. Do you want to go back on your word? The consequences of going back on your word are very serious. Zhao Qingxian knew that he had no other choice. Alright then. I only have one request. I hope that the river god will not make me bald. As for other parts, losing a finger or something is not a problem. You're quite open-minded. The river god chuckled. However, according to the principle of equivalent exchange, the parts that disappear are random. Even I can't control it. You better pray for yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, the aura on the river god's body suddenly changed. A strange feeling of the supreme Tao emanated from his body. The mystery of the mystery of the door. In this place all sorts of illusions were born. Feeling the power of the heavenly path river god at such a close distance, Zhao Qingxian felt as if the whole world had calmed down at this moment. In fact, every time he made a deal with the river god of the heavenly way, it was a great opportunity for him to experience the laws of the heavenly way up close. However, the duration of this feeling was too short, and it always gave people a feeling of wanting more. Transaction complete. About 10 seconds later, the river god opened his phoenix eyes again. Zhao Qingxian asked, "Did you succeed?" The river god nodded. "It's a success." Zhao Qingxian excitedly pulled open his pants to take a look. The next moment, it was as if he was struck by lightning. He was extremely shocked by the scene in front of him. Lord River God. The river god raised his eyebrows. "What is it?" Zhao Qingxian roared, "You put the eggs back and took away my Youqiao. What's the use of this?" The river deity smiled. "From now on, you are the new old man with eggs." After saying that, he turned into a puddle of water and melted into the river, leaving Zhao Qingxian alone on the riverbank in the wind. Why am I so unlucky after coming to Earth? After who knew how much time had passed, Zhao Qingxian crouched down on the riverbank with his head in his hands. The expression on his face was one of pain, full of the mental breakdown of an adult. All of this was actually just as the monk had said at the beginning. As cultivators in the domain of the gods, life in the domain of the gods was too easy. In order to ensure that the younger generation's cultivation path would be more stable, the elders had paved all kinds of paths for them in advance. They were afraid that these descendants would trip on the road. The overly comfortable life had also caused these cultivators who had walked out of the divine domain to become mentally weak. Wang Zhen, Lu Qingyi and the others had all suffered losses before. Fortunately, they had also grown very quickly. Their tempering on earth had made their hearts more resolute, their spirits more resilient, and they had become more tactful in handling things. Zhao Qingxian currently didn't have any of this growth. Is it painful? At that moment, a figure appeared behind Zhao Qingxian. This person wore a black cloak and had a neat black buzz cut. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, and looked like a man who had walked out of a comic book. Zhao Qingxian didn't know this man. But this man seemed to know him and seemed to know everything about him. The man stretched out his hand, and Zhao Qingxian was stunned by his jade-white hand with distinct fingers. It was hard for him to imagine that a man's hand could be so delicate. The other party stretched out a finger and lightly tapped his forehead. In the next moment, Zhao Qingxian suddenly felt that his missing part had actually returned. This. He was utterly astonished. It's just an illusion, that's all. The man smiled. Senior. Zhao Qingxian knelt down. You're welcome. The man helped Zhao Qingxian up and was extremely gentle. My name is Yang Shuangji. You can also call me Mr. Shuangji. Mr. Shuangji. Zhao Qingxian carefully mulled over this name, and at the same time, his expression was extremely astonished. I don't know Mr. Shuangji. May I ask why Mr. Shuangji is helping me? Life is full of hardships, but it's nothing. The man called Shuangji smiled. At that moment, Zhao Qingxian noticed a string of Buddha beads around the man's neck. Each bead was the size of a walnut, which gave Zhao Qingxian a sense of déjà vu. This was because Zhao Qingxian seemed to have seen the vein patterns on it somewhere before. Do you know your crime for going against the heavens? At that moment, on the originally calm river surface, a solemn voice rang out like the illusory sound of the great Tao. Zhao Qingxian felt a piercing pain in his ears. Just as he was about to kneel on the ground, Mr. Shuangji, who was next to him, tapped his ear lightly and easily quantified this force. The handsome heavenly Tao river god who had previously disappeared reappeared and stared at the man who had suddenly appeared in front of him with a pair of phoenix eyes. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with Mr. Shuangji's meddling. If you have the ability, you can go against the heavens. May I know what crime I have committed? Mr. Shuangji took a step forward, his body surrounded by golden light. The most sacred of Buddhist studies? The heavenly Tao river god was extremely surprised. Lord River God, please step back. You are definitely no match for me. Yang Shuangji stood in front of Zhao Qingxian. I have fate with this person, so I will definitely protect him. You have broken the laws of the heavenly Tao. As a river god, how can I spare you? The phoenix-eyed river god was furious. His voice was indifferent and had a strong sense of majesty. In the next moment, the surface of the river began to boil. The laws of the great Tao intertwined and began to flow out. You overestimate yourself. Yang Shuangji shook his head. He put his palms together and a golden Buddhist light shot out from his hands. Before the river god could fully express his anger, it pierced through the skull of the phoenix-eyed river god. The Buddhist light crashed into the river god's body. Accompanied by astonishing energy, the heavenly Tao river god was shattered on the spot and instantly evaporated. Chapter 1360. The heavenly river god was destroyed in an instant. Zhao Qingxian's surprise could no longer be described in words. The golden lamp monk was the only Buddhist sage he knew. He didn't expect that Mr. Shuangji in front of him was also a Buddhist sage. Zhao Qingxian had already experienced golden lamp monk's strength. Even before he came to earth, Zhao Qingxian still remembered the words his father left him. His father was afraid that he would come to earth and stir up trouble, so he left him a list of people that he must not provoke. In addition to Ling Jinren at the top of the list, Monk Jin Deng's name was also on it. The list of people you must not provoke? At this moment, Mr. Shuangji smiled. His ability to read minds was as powerful as Monk Jin Deng's. Mr. Shuangji's foresight is divine. Just some small tricks. Yang Shuangji said, this list of yours is quite interesting. I didn't expect that even my senior brother's name would be on it. Mr. Shuangji, are you talking about Senior Golden Lamp? Zhao Qingxian was shocked. This Yang Shuangji before him was actually the junior brother of the Golden Lamp monk? Jin Deng is indeed my senior brother, but he probably doesn't know that I'm still alive. Yang Shuangji casually said, maybe my existence is bad news to him. Because in this way he would no longer be Master's sole successor. Zhao Qingxian did not dare to reply. Although Yang Shuangji claimed to be Golden Lamp monk's junior brother, Zhao Qingxian still felt that this person exuded a strange feeling from head to toe. Benefactor Zhao, if you think that my words are untrustworthy, then it's normal. One must always be on guard against others, but I believe that time and reality will prove everything. Yang Shuangji carefully looked at the information on the list and couldn't help but smile. Benefactor Zhao, how about we kill all the people on this list together? Zhao Qingxian thought he had misheard. What are you talking about, sir? He didn't believe that the person in front of him would be so daring as to say such words. Don't worry, Benefactor Zhao. I've already renounced asceticism a long time ago. So killing a few people is just a basic operation for me. Yang Shuangji said lightly as if he was just talking about a few ants. I'm not even afraid of the heavenly Tao, and I even dare to go against the heavens. What's more, I've only killed a few people. But sir, you don't understand. Zhao Qingxian tried his best to stop Yang Shuangji's crazy thoughts. Although he hadn't witnessed Wang Ling's methods with his own eyes, because when Wang Ling had made his move in the domain of the gods back then, the pressure had been so strong that Zhao Qingxian hadn't been able to react at all before he had already passed out. He had learned about Ling Jinren from the Zhao family servants, several clan elders and his father. Before they left, the Zhao clan's clan leader had repeatedly warned them not to provoke this person. Naturally, Zhao Qingxian would not turn a deaf ear to it. He had come to Earth on his father's orders to curry favor with Ling Jinren, so there was no way he would do such a treasonous thing. Of course, Lu Qingyi was also very important. Furthermore, Lu Qingyi and Ling Jinren had an extraordinary relationship, so it was even more impossible for Zhao Qingxian to offend Wang Ling if he wanted to woo Lu Qingyi. I know what you're afraid of. At this time, Yang Shuangji said, the benefactor surnamed Wang on the list. If my guess is correct, all of this is a trick of my senior brother. Senior, what do you mean? Zhao Qingxian was puzzled. My senior brother has always been a liar through and through. Playing a two-man act is his usual trick. Playing a two-man act. That's right, my senior brother has created countless legendary characters. Back then he was even given the title of Buddha sock puppet. Yang Shuangji said, senior brother has reincarnated so many times, dressing up as a woman, being an emperor, beggar, eunuch, dying fat otaku. He's experienced all kinds of things. With such rich experiences, it's definitely not difficult for him to create a character for himself. Zhao Qingxian immediately understood what was going on. Buddha sock puppet. That was to say, Ling Jinren was actually Monk Golden Lamp's sock puppet? Zhao Qingxian was completely confused by this. Now, he was actually starting to be unable to tell which side was right. On one hand, he indeed hadn't seen Wang Ling's strength with his own eyes, and had only heard from word of mouth that such a ridiculously strong man existed. On the other hand, Yang Shuangji spoke resolutely, as if he was extremely confident in his deduction. This made Zhao Qingxian very puzzled. Yang Shuangji's eyes gradually turned crazy. My senior brother's strength is unparalleled. If I wasn't still alive, I'm afraid that no one in this world would be able to restrain him. Apart from me, there can't be a human stronger than him. If there is, it must be his sock puppet. Zhao Qingxian, then sir, you mean, Yang Shuangji, I just need you to follow me for the time being, and then witness the moment my senior brother's plot is exposed. Zhao Qingxian, but I still don't understand why sir chose me, Yang Shuangji. Maybe you don't realize it, but you are a very important witness. Zhao Qingxian didn't dare believe it. Meh. Your father sent you to Earth just to curry favor with the so-called almighties. But in fact, you don't need to curry favor with anyone. Yang Shuangji couldn't help laughing when he said this. Everything is predestined, in short. If you follow me, you'll get everything you want. Then? I'm willing to give it a try, sir. Zhao Qingxian gritted his teeth. Very good. Yang Shuangji nodded in satisfaction. First of all, our first step is to expose my senior brother's plot and destroy the sock puppets he created. Sir, are you confident? Of course. Yang Shuangji laughed. No one can resist my Azura pestle. Elsewhere, in the Wang family's small villa, the monk was in the middle of asking for the heavenly Tao magic cube. After guarding the shop with the king's eye, Wang Ling had played with the hexahedron like a toy for a while before putting it aside. Now that he heard that the golden lamp was going to be made into a magic weapon, Wang Ling didn't hesitate to give it to him. In any case, it was useless to him. Jinren's gift is too straightforward. The monk had thought that it wouldn't be easy to get the magic cube. At that moment, as he held the heavenly Tao magic cube in his hand, the expression on his face suddenly turned a little melancholic. For some reason, the golden lamp recalled how it and its little junior brother had fought over the magic cube. You have a junior brother? Wang Ling read the monk's thoughts and asked telepathically. Yes, my little junior brother. But he passed away a long time ago. And he used to be a magic cube enthusiast. Holding the magic cube in his hand, Monk Golden Lamp couldn't help but think of Wang Ling. He didn't think he was a particularly sentimental person. But for some reason, as he held the magic cube, He suddenly felt as if his little junior brother hadn't died yet. "Are you sure your little junior brother is dead?" Wang Ling asked telepathically at that moment. Monk Golden Lamp said succinctly, "He's definitely dead, I scattered his ashes." Chapter 1361. At the mention of his junior brother, the monk's face was full of melancholy. As far as he could remember, Wang Ling had rarely seen this expression on the monk's face. It was obvious that the friendship between the monk and his junior brother back then was very deep. At that moment, the monk said, "Amit Ba," and then said, "Let me tell you about my experience of scattering the ashes back then." Wang Ling, Monk Golden Lamp said, "Back then my junior brother and I entered the temple together to break through the Mongolian maze that Shifu had left behind. Whoever passed would inherit Shifu's legacy. But halfway there, I was trapped by the maze of the past that Shifu had left behind." Hearing this, Wang Ling understood. This Buddhist maze of the past was probably based on the same principle as the repentance palm of the past, which the monk had used against the primordial heavenly Tao. If the victim didn't reflect on themselves, they would be trapped in the infinite illusion of the past forever. This was my Shifu's test for me, but I let him down. Monk Golden Lamp sighed. If my junior brother had left me behind and continued on, he would have become Shifu's successor. However, he sacrificed himself to get me out of my predicament. "And then you became the ultimate saint of Buddhism?" Wang Ling asked. "No." The monk shook his head. "This poor monk's current cultivation was obtained by relying on my own strength after I attained enlightenment. Although junior brother saved me, I didn't open the gate of destiny in the temple hall. Junior brother was more suitable to be my successor than I was. He sacrificed himself to help me get out of trouble. This poor monk will remember this kind of friendship for the rest of his life. That gate of destiny is still in the temple hall to this day, and this poor monk has never opened it. I don't know what Shifu left for us. Maybe it's some magic weapon? Or some Buddhist scripture." At that moment, the monk laughed bitterly. "But since it's an inheritance, it can definitely help one of us become the ultimate saint of Buddhism." Saying this, Monk Golden Lamp noticed that Wang Ling was suddenly frowning, as if he was deep in thought. "Ling Jinren?" the monk asked. He rarely saw Wang Ling in a daze. If he did, something big was definitely going to happen. For example, the last time he had been in a daze, he had swapped souls with Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. Wang Ling came back to his senses. Nothing. Zhao Qingxian was taken into Yang Shuangji's inner world. At the same time, Yang Shuangji, who was in action, also began to carry out his plan to remove his name from the list of people you must not provoke. Apart from Wang Ling and the monk who were first and second on the list, the other names were in no particular order. "Senior, aren't you going to kill Ling Jinren? But why did you choose the last person on the list to attack first?" Zhao Qingxian asked curiously in the inner world. "Good dishes should be saved for last," Mr. Shuangji said. It was too meaningless to kill his own senior brother and senior brother's disguise too early. Thus, Yang Shuangji's idea was to get rid of all the other people on the list, and then finally deal with Monk Golden Lamp and Wang Ling. Since they could appear on this list, it was obvious that these people were related to his senior brother. The last person on the list, Lotus Sunday. This was the first target he wanted to kill. He was just a foundation establishment cultivator. He was at the level where he could destroy them with a single breath. However, Yang Shuangji did not know where the girl lived. Thus, he used his Azura pestle to determine the position. "Zhao Qingxian, sir, what are you going to do?" Yang Shuangji smiled. "Just watch." He stood on a flat surface and placed the Azura pestle vertically on it. Then he loosened his grip and the Azura pestle fell in a certain direction. "It's that direction." This method of determining the position looked a little casual, but Yang Shuangji was convinced. It was the legendary Buddhist fate-determining position method. You just had to silently recite the name of the person you were looking for. What was more convenient was that this list of people you must not provoke actually had photos of each person on it. Except for his senior brother's Wang Ling's disguise, which had been blurred out, the photos of everyone else were very clearly listed next to their names. This undoubtedly made Yang Shuangji's search a lot easier. "I think this girl isn't bad. If you like women, I think you can give her a try." Yang Shuangji chuckled. "No, I only have Qingyi in my heart, there's no room for other women." Zhao Qingxian shook his head and refused. In the photo, Lotus Sun was indeed very beautiful, and her exquisite facial features could almost be described as impeccable. In Zhao Qingxian's words, this was the face of first love that all boys fantasized about. but as an infatuated man, he had already given his heart to Lu Qingyi long ago. The main reason he was willing to descend to earth this time was actually because of Lu Qingyi. I didn't expect you to be such a romantic, what a pity. Yang Shuangji smiled. Then I'll go first. In any case, I've already renounced asceticism and haven't touched a woman for a long time. Senior is thinking, that's right. I'll kill this girl first, then enjoy her while she's hot. The corners of Yang Shuangji's lips curled up in a wicked smile. Zhao Qingxian suddenly felt a little regretful. The person he was following didn't seem normal. He was too perverted. Most importantly, this kind of person was actually the most sacred of Buddhism. Was Buddha sure he wouldn't cry? Using the Ajura Pestil's Buddhist fate-determining position method, Yang Shuangji very quickly arrived at the entrance of the luxurious villa where Lotus Sun lived. Too weak. In front of the door, Yang Shuangji sensed the aura inside the villa, and felt that the person inside was pitifully weak. But for a foundation establishment cultivator, he had to be a little more careful. Since he wanted to get close to a woman, he couldn't be too heavy-handed, or it would be very embarrassing if he slapped her into a paste. He raised his hand and aimed his palm in the direction of Lotus Sun's bedroom. He tried to use the force of his palm to lure the girl out of the room. In the end, at this moment, in the void, there was a wave of powerful aura that followed the direction of his palm force and attacked in reverse. Like a long river flowing backward, the enormous energy instantly shook off Yang Shuangji's palm. An expert? Yang Shuangji's heart shook. He hadn't expected a top expert to be hiding in this house. While he was thinking, a shadow was gathering in the air. Countless shadows poured out from Lotus Sun's bedroom, and finally formed the shape of Sun Yinger. Who is it? Someone wants to attack my Rongrong. As soon as Sun Yinger appeared, she turned her gaze to Yang Shuangji at the door. Anyone who dares to touch my Rongrong must die. In her rage, her snow-white hair fluttered in the air. Sun Yinger pursed her lips, and in a flash she split into 10-odd clones and charged toward Yang Shuangji. Chapter 1362. There's actually a clone with the same energy as the main body? This was the first time Yang Shuangji had encountered such a thing. Strictly speaking, he felt that this was not a clone at all. However, Yang Shuangji seemed to gradually understand the specific principle of using it as he dealt with the clones. These clones were all based on the main body, so as long as the main body was taken down, the clones would automatically disappear. At this moment, Yang Shuangji turned his gaze to Sun Yinger in the void. He spread out his right hand. Pestle. A purplish-gold Buddhist pestle with a ferocious beast carved on its head passed through layers of space walls and came to his hand. This was the Ajura pestle that Yang Shuangji was proud of. The ferocious beast on its head was the hell beast that suppressed the 18 levels of hell. Although it was a Buddhist item, it had an extremely strong murderous aura. Sun Yinger's main body had yet to approach, but just by smelling the Ajura pestle's aura, she felt that the void in front of her was filled with illusions. Everything was dyed blood red. Even the water vapor in the air seemed to have turned into a blood mist, making it difficult to breathe. But, Senior, why does she look like she's in pain? Zhao Qingxian asked curiously in the inner world. He did not know what had happened. From his perspective, it was still blue sky and white clouds. Everything was normal. This is the Ajura blood illusion array of the Ajura pestle. The more people killed, the harder it is to escape. Yang Shuangji sneered. She's trapped by my Ajura pestle and can't escape for now. Everything in the illusion array is fake and we're still in reality. Now all we need to do is walk in and take down that girl. But who is this white-haired girl? She should be the one who refined her shadow into a magic treasure? Although I don't know how she did it, I'm slightly surprised. She's just a foundation establishment. Before Yang Shuangji could finish speaking, a shadow suddenly whipped out from the void and hit the right side of his face. Immediately afterward, Yang Shuangji's entire face began to distort. He quickly flew backward and crashed into a metal pier in the distance, causing the entire bridge to collapse. Although there was a huge commotion, Yang Shuangji himself did not seem to be too badly injured. After he got up from the pile of rubble, he was surprised to find that Sun Yinger had used her own strength to break free from the illusion. You didn't expect this, did you? Sun Yinger chuckled. The more people killed, the harder it was to escape? Sun Yinger smiled. Ever since she had turned into a shadow and became the master of the void, she had fought with many people from the war sect. But the problem was that she hadn't killed a single person. Not only did he not commit any murder, but he was also forced to accept Wang Ying's beatings every day. Thinking of this, Sun Yinger was about to cry out of grievance. In her grief and indignation, she broke free from the illusion of the Azura pestle almost immediately and gave Yang Xuangji a face-breaking punch. Although the split body hit the right side of the face, the power of this punch was enough. The damage from the backlash was reflected on the doppelganger in an instant, shattering it into pieces. However, Yang Xuangji's entire body flew very far away, but such an explosive punch did not cause any substantial damage to him. Sun Yinger was slightly surprised. The person in front of her was much stronger than she had imagined. Supreme Buddhism, she muttered. Just as the split body punched out, she saw a layer of Buddha's light protecting Yang Xuangji's body, although it was only for a moment. Sun Yinger was sure that she did not see wrong. In addition, there was the Azura pestle that was floating in the void. This was a powerful Buddhist world-defying magical artifact. And what made Sun Yinger even more shocked was that there was chaotic force flowing in it, at least 5% of it. Fortunately, her battle strength was not low, otherwise she would have been done for. I don't know how the little girl inside refined the shadow into an artifact, but if you are willing to come with me, I can spare your master's life. I will only rape him, not kill him. Yang Xuangji said. You are a supreme Buddhism, how can you say such shameless words? I have lived for a long time. You are not a fake monk, are you? Sun Yinger listened to Yang Xuangji's words, feeling incredulous and a little funny at the same time. Also, what makes you think that I am a refined artifact? She felt that the fake monk in front of her had an inexplicable kind of conceit, and it was the kind of conceit of a frog in a well. Although Sun Yinger had heard that the Golden Lamp monk was also extremely confident in his own strength, at least he would reflect on himself. They were both supreme Buddhists, but why was the gap so big? Sun Yinger felt that the man in front of her was revealing something strange. If he was a fake monk, the holy aura he exuded was real, just like the Golden Lamp monk. If he was a real monk, Sun Yinger could not accept that such a thought, which was even more perverted than Wang Ying, would appear in the head of such a supreme Buddhism saint. Since that's the case, I'll take both of you down today. A threesome, perhaps it will be more enjoyable. Yang Xuangji licked his lips. He manipulated the Azura pestle, jumped up from a distance and attacked Sun Yinger. At this time, Sun Yinger was still in deep shock. She thought that Wang Ying was perverted enough. She did not expect that there would be an even more perverted one. Sure enough, there was no limit to the realm of perversion. With such a comparison, Sun Yinger suddenly felt that Wang Ying was much more normal than Yang Xuangji. At the very least, Wang Ying had only used the planet wall tapping technique on her. Although it made her waist hurt, he did not do anything else that crossed the line. Compared to Yang Xuangji, Wang Ying was simply a gentleman. As long as I can restrain you, your split bodies will disappear. At this time, Yang Xuangji's laughter came from afar. His Azura pestle burst out in full force at this moment, and the blood-colored Buddha light shone for thousands of miles, incomparably gorgeous, with a natural majesty in the awe-inspiring atmosphere. Those split bodies were all suppressed to the ground, like nails deeply embedded in the ground, unable to move. At the same time, the Azura pestle fell on Sun Yinger's body to suppress it. That dense oppressive force caused the careless girl to be trapped. It's all that damn Wang Ying's fault. Sun Yinger was panicking. Her strength was restricted by Wang Ying, which allowed Yang Xuangji to have the upper hand at this time. Otherwise, how could a mere Yang Xuangji be her opponent? Yang Xuangji revealed a wretched expression. His tongue was very long, and when he pounced in front of Sun Yinger, he almost licked Sun Yinger's face. However, at this time, there was a buzzing sound. The huge black shadow that covered the sky and the earth suddenly did not come. The black shadow was like a tide, sweeping in from all directions, instantly sweeping Sun Yinger away. Yang Xuangji stuck out his tongue. In the end, he only licked her loneliness. At the critical moment, Sun Yinger was rescued. She felt a domineering force suddenly pulling her away, and she could not be more familiar with this force. It was that man who appeared. He was like a god appearing to save her, and then quickly swept Yang Xuangji into his inner world. It was Wang Ying's inner world. Wang Ying. Sun Yinger was almost sobbing. All kinds of emotions intertwined in her heart. She was a little touched, but she was more disgusted by the tongue that Yang Xuangji had just stuck out. Who are you? Facing the man who suddenly appeared, Yang Xuangji was feeling depressed that he did not succeed. Touch my people? Wang Ying frowned. He stood with his hands behind his back, not even moving a finger. The countless shadows in the inner world turned into tens of millions of strips, and instantly attacked. Yang Xuangji's eyes were filled with horror. This power was too terrifying, and the Shura pestle that he was so proud of was snatched away by these strips of shadows, instantly swallowed up. That was the magic weapon that he was so proud of. Now that it was snatched away, Yang Xuangji instantly lost most of his sense of security. The countless strips rolled in from all directions, pulling Yang Xuangji's limbs, tightly wrapping him up. No! Yang Xuangji shouted, burning his own blood essence, wanting to resist. However, all of this was useless. Wang Ying's speed was too fast, his figure was as dense as a ghost, and instantly appeared in front of Yang Xuangji, stretching out his hand and strangling his neck. Yang Xuangji was in pain from being strangled, and the tongue in his mouth was forcefully squeezed out by Wang Ying. Wang Ying did not say anything, only to hear "chi," another sound. He controlled the strips of shadows around him and pulled out Yang Xuangji's entire tongue. However, to Wang Ying, all of this was just the beginning. You still haven't moved, where? Wang Ying stared at Yang Xuangji coldly. He began to torture at his own pace. In the inner world, Yang Xuangji's screams were heard, at this moment. This was a unique song that belonged to Wang Ying, the Shadow Dao execution song. Chapter 1363. Wang Ying didn't know why he hated Yang Xuangji so much. Maybe it was because of Yang Xuangji's insufferably arrogant face. Maybe it was because of Yang Xuangji's arrogant, complacent and insufferably arrogant attitude. Or even simpler, it was simply because Yang Xuangji had bullied Sun Yinger. Mixed up with these emotions, the rage in Wang Ying's heart was on the verge of bursting out. There was no suspense in the ensuing battle. The only difference between them was the king's eye, and Yang Xuangji naturally wasn't Wang Ying's match. He strangled Yang Xuangji's neck, cut off his tongue and finally broke his fingers one by one. These filthy, evil hands made Wang Ying's blood run cold and disgusting. Shadow Dao Execution Tune was the most terrifying of all Shadow Dao spells that Wang Ying had, and was ranked number 1. Its power was second only to the Shadow Ball which he had used to deal with the groundhog. But once it was carried out, it would make people experience the inhumane feeling of abuse. The heart-wrenching damage that would be transmitted would not cause one to die, but it would be able to destroy one's spirit through the continuous abuse. In the end, it collapsed. Shadow Ball was an immobilizing destructive spell. Every second spent in the Shadow Ball would cause damage equivalent to one slap from Wang Ling. But Wang Ying felt that using Shadow Ball to deal with someone like Yang Xuangji was going too easy on him. As for the Shadow Dao Execution Tune, it was perfect for Yang Xuangji. Like long spears, striped shadows attacked from all directions and pierced through Yang Xuangji's body. One of them pierced Yang Xuangji's mouth directly, piercing his throat all the way through and coming out through the soles of his feet. However, Wang Ying's abuse didn't stop there. His eyes were bloodshot as he entered a berserk state. This was a Wang Ying that Sun Yinger had never seen before. For a moment, the girl suddenly felt fear. In a berserk state, Wang Ying directed thousands of striped shadows to poke holes in Yang Xuangji's body. He kept repeating his actions. He was like an emotionless, ice-cold machine. Sun Yinger finally couldn't take it anymore. She stepped forward and hugged him from behind. Enough, Wang Ying. He's already dead. This call finally brought Wang Ying back to his senses. The red light in his eyes receded. Peace returned to the inner world. All that was left was Yang Xuangji's corpse, which had been tortured beyond recognition. At this point, all the executions had been completed. Wang Ying stabbed her hand into Yang Xuangji's dantian. As soon as Yang Xuangji died, the inner world within him began to collapse. However, Wang Ying could sense that there was another person hidden in Yang Xuangji's inner world. Then Zhao Qingxian was pulled out. Wang Ying grabbed Zhao Qingxian's neck, scaring him out of his wits. Senior, don't kill me. I was forced by him. The son of the Divine Realm's Zhao family's patriarch. Wang Ying read out this person's background. He also knew why Zhao Qingxian was hanging out with Yang Xuangji. Earlier, Zhao Qingxian had said, he only has Lu Qingyi in his heart. This sentence actually saved Zhao Qingxian's life. He sensed that Zhao Qingxian bore no malice towards Lotus Sunday. In the end, Wang Ying brought Zhao Qingxian out of the inner world and threw him on the ground. Thank you for not killing me, senior. Zhao Qingxian hurriedly kowtowed and begged for mercy. Someone as strong as Yang Xuangji had been abused by Wang Ying to the point where he couldn't even put up a fight. This kind of strength instantly gave Zhao Qingxian a clearer understanding of his trip to Earth. Can you let go of me? At that moment, Wang Ying frowned and asked. Sun Yinger was still hugging him like a koala bear. Sorry? Sun Yinger hurriedly let go. But get this straight. I wasn't going to hug you just now. I know. I didn't hug you because I wanted you to calm down because you were in a killing frenzy. I know. It's all because your inner world is too cold. Wang Ying nodded. He allowed the young girl to make these seemingly weak arguments. By the way, how did you know I was in danger? Sun Yinger was curious. You're too stupid. You could be in danger at any time, Wang Ying replied. Who's stupid? I've been observing from the side for a long time. If it weren't for Miss Sun being in danger, I wouldn't have made a move. It's also not because the Lord predicted that you would be in danger, so he came, Wang Ying said expressionlessly. You're not honest at all. Sun Yinger said. You're the same. Wang Ying shrugged and stared at Sun Yinger. Tonight you still owe me 200 punishments. Why? You failed to protect Miss Sun and you still need me to make a move. You're the Void Master. Wang Ying smiled coldly. It's obviously you. When Sun Yinger heard Wang Ying's words, she wanted to go up and ruthlessly trample on Wang Ying's face, but she restrained her impulse in the end. She wanted to say that it was Wang Ying who restricted her ability. But when the words reached her mouth, she didn't dare to say it. She knew that once she said it, she would fall into Wang Ying's trap. He would definitely seize the opportunity to increase the number of punishments. It's just 200 times. Fine, I'll punish you. Sun Yinger stomped her feet in exasperation. Then she turned her gaze to Yang Shuangji, who was not even human anymore. What's going on with this person? The Lord has already divined this person's background, so I have to ask you, Wang Ying said. Ask me? What does it have to do with me? Sun Yinger put her hands on her hips and put on an innocent expression. This person is not a Buddhist saint, Wang Ying said. How is that possible? Zhao Qingxian, who was still kneeling on the ground, looked shocked. But he clearly told me that he's Grandmaster Jin Deng's junior brother. Grandmaster Jin Deng's junior brother died a long time ago. How could a Buddhist disciple who was willing to die in order to save his senior brother possibly say these insulting words of Buddhism? Wang Ying said. After he said that, Sun Yinger carefully observed Yang Shuangji, and the expression on her face suddenly became extremely surprised. Did you notice? Wang Ying asked. Sun Yinger reached out and a light seal appeared in her palm. It was the Void Master's seal. She reached out and covered Yang Shuangji's body. The blood-drenched body instantly turned into particles of light and disappeared. This is an imaginary creature? Yes, this person is an imaginary creature from the Void world. He's also our old friend, Wang Ying said. Everyone knew that the minds of the Void creatures were connected. They lived in the Void and relied on all kinds of imagination to obtain spiritual satisfaction and pleasure. These imaginative things usually did not affect reality. However, there was still a very small probability that these imagination things would be reflected in real life. To put it bluntly, if the obsession was strong enough, they could use the power of the Void to reimagine themselves. I know that the Void creatures are now under strict control, so this kind of situation can't happen. But you need to know that your Void world is not clean for a long time, Wang Ying said. Are you talking about the human cultivators who evolved into Void creatures? Sun Yinger was surprised. This is the only reason why a Void creature would have such a strong obsession. Wang Ying said, Golden Deng's junior brother is not called Yang Shuangji. This person disguised himself as a Buddhist saint and changed his name to Yang Shuangji, which is actually a hint to his true identity. You're saying he is Yang, the symbol of day. Shuangji is Zhe. Has the same sound as Zhe. This person is still alive. Sun Yinger was shocked. She had inherited all the energy and information of the old Void Master, so she naturally knew about this person. But this person was already dead. All the Baizhi in the parallel worlds had been completely destroyed. I didn't think that there would be someone with such a strong obsession in this world. Wang Ying couldn't help but laugh. Baizhi's obsession was unbelievable even to him. He was already dead. He even used the last remnant of his will to assume the identity of the deceased and forcefully filled in the gaps in his mind. P.S. For this chapter, see Chapter 1261, The Night of Demolition in 112660 High. Chapter 1364. The probability of imaginary creatures appearing in the Void was very small, and generally speaking, there was no need to pay special attention to them, since they were just imagination created by some very obsessive Void creatures. Although this kind of imagination would be reflected in reality, it was like a dream, and would disappear as soon as one woke up. It was like a mirage that many people saw. But this was the first time even Sun Yinger had seen such an obsessive imagination. In the records of the old Void Masters, there had never been an imaginary creature, created by a void spirit that could live in the real world for more than 30 seconds. And Baijia's duration was beyond imagination. This kind of obsession was frightening. He'll probably appear again in the future. Sun Yinger was very curious. Maybe, Wang Ying replied with a nod. I'm very curious what makes him so obsessed. Sun Yinger didn't understand. He's not the main character, but he imagines himself to be the main character. That's the saddest thing about Baijia, Wang Ying said. So it's the obsession of being the main character. Sun Yinger thought it was a little funny. So, is that why he imagines himself to be the main character and doesn't recognize Wang Ling? He's been killed many times by Commander Ling. Since he appears in the form of imagination, he naturally imagines himself to be invincible. After all, he imagines himself to be the main character, and would never imagine a memory that's bad for him. So in his mind he's invincible. One last question. Why does he imagine himself to be someone who's already dead? Wang Ying replied, there's a basic rule for imagination, and the dead won't disturb the order. It would be interesting if he defied nature and imagined himself to be Commander Ling that day. So maybe he'll use the identity of someone else who's already dead in the future. We have to be prepared. You have to protect Miss Sun at all times. He clearly didn't have much to do, but he forced himself to be the main character. Each time Baijia thought he was invincible, but he was killed time and time again. There was no doubt that he was a tragic character. I will. Sun Yinger nodded. But can you remove the restriction on me? No. Wang Ying refused Sun Yinger's request. Why? No reason, because I don't want to. When Wang Ying said that, he took the opportunity to grab Sun Yinger's hands, put them against a wall, and moved his face closer. They were so close that Sun Yinger could hear Wang Ying's breathing. Sun Yinger, pervert, Wang Ying sneered. Tonight 200 times, don't forget. With that, Wang Ying let go of Sun Yinger and disappeared with Zhao Qingxian in a black shadow. Hateful guy. Every time he uses so much force. Sun Yinger grumbled and rubbed her wrist that was hurting from being pinched. Just as he was about to return to Lotus Sun's side, he suddenly heard a loud boom behind him. Because Wang Ying had just been pushed against the wall. The wall behind her had actually collapsed. This was the outer wall of the villa, and it was at least 1,000 meters long. Now, a part of the wall had collapsed, forming a domino effect. The 1,000-meter wall began to collapse one after another. Sun Yinger was extremely shocked. After that, she understood something. That was, never let a man with a higher realm than you push you against the wall. Elsewhere, Wang Ying had dragged Zhao Qingxian to the Wang family's small villa. He could be spared the death penalty, but he couldn't be spared. Choosing to join Yang Shuangji's camp had already been a huge mistake. If it wasn't for his infatuation with Lu Qingyi, not even ashes would be left of Zhao Qingxian. Jinren, spare me. I didn't join on purpose. I've admired Qingyi for a long time, but after I came to Earth I was inexplicably brought to a detention center. Zhao Qingxian's eyes welled up with tears as he said this. He didn't know why this had happened. Zhao Qingxian was well aware that he couldn't hide anything at all, so he simply confessed everything. Wang Ling had already read the cause and effect of everything in Zhao Qingxian's mind. Overall, Zhao Qingxian could be considered honest. Furthermore, Zhao Qingxian couldn't be blamed entirely for being sent to a detention center. Zhao Qingxian had been sent down by the head of the Zhao family to make friends with Wang Zhen. Who would have thought that as soon as he came to Earth, Wang Zhen would plot against him and beat him up? He could be considered an unlucky kid. Then Wang Ling waved his hand and motioned for Wang Ying to take Zhao Qingxian to Wei Ji's apartment for Gu Xuanji to supervise. He told Wang Ying to bring Zhao Qingxian to his side. He just wanted to know why Baijia had come to Zhao Qingxian after he had imagined himself to be Yang Shuangji. He felt that there might be some key clue on Zhao Qingxian that Baijia could use, which was why Baijia had set his eyes on him. But what exactly, Wang Ling couldn't say for sure at the moment. Because this Baijia hadn't explained anything to Zhao Qingxian before Wang Ying had killed him. And now, Zhao Qingxian was also in a state of confusion. He had no idea what had happened at all. I'll send you to a place where the Keeper of Order will supervise you. You have to behave, Wang Ying said as she stared at Zhao Qingxian at that moment. Yes. After you go back, when the soul change spell wears off, switch back to your original body. Don't cause any more trouble. You have to report everything you do in advance. Understood. Zhao Qingxian nodded. Also, there's something else I have to tell you. Wang Ying rubbed his chin thoughtfully. He had actually pondered for a long time whether to tell Zhao Qingxian this bad news, but he felt that since the matter was already settled, it was better to let Zhao Qingxian accept it sooner rather than later. Wang Ying, Miss Lu already has someone she likes. Although you're infatuated with her, I advise you not to harass her. Otherwise you'll be dealt with very badly. Someone she likes? Who's the one she likes? I want to fight him one-on-one. Zhao Qingxian was furious and looked like he wanted nothing more than to rush forward and bite someone to death. Wang Zhen. Wang Ying said, do you know him? Hearing this, Zhao Qingxian was alarmed. Aren't they at loggerheads? He's so sweet now, Wang Ying said. You can't force things when it comes to relationships. They're very close now, so whatever you do is useless. After Wang Ying said this, Zhao Qingxian's nose turned sour and he burst into tears on the spot. He took out the last of his belongings from his storage ring and kowtowed to Wang Ling. Jinren. These 3 heavenly essence returning heart pills are my last life-saving measure. I beg you help me. I can't live without Qingyi. Wang Ling. Next to him Wang Ying didn't say anything, and directly dragged the crying Zhao Qingxian away. Not crispy noodle snacks. He still had the nerve to complain. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.